like something.
All right, hello. Hello. Order. All right. So, stories.
Somebody named Steven's story.
Oh, yeah.
All
right. So, what we're going to do is go into Mod 4. I'll give it a second if everyone wants to go to page 27.
Okay.
Mod 4. Ladies, are y'all back with us?
Page 7.
27. Are you with us, wonderful ladies? Page 27.
Oh, I'm dreading a bar. Club, yeah. But I have to work till kids or anybody telling me down should be able to know.
Now, if you guys want to continue, all right, good stuff. Ladies are here. If you guys want to continue either on the hard copy or the soft copy of your scripts, now that you have it online, you're more than welcome to. We're going to go through the booklet to go through the points in Mod 4. But then if you guys want to start getting used to scrolling through your script, the PDF version, you're more than welcome to do that, because that more than likely will be that's the best way to access your script. Again, you guys will have multiple screens, so you at any time can navigate your script, and the prescription provider along with Agency Block will do systems tomorrow.
Have you ever had like the computer go down or something go down like that, where you actually would need to have a copy of your paper script handy? Just in case.
If your computer goes down, the last thing you're going to worry about is your script, because you don't have a client on the line. Everything is internet based. Yeah. So, no, it has not happened in a while, but I think twice the dialer went down. I think last year it might have been twice that the dialer went down, but they usually, that's a major thing. So everything stops to get that back going if that were to happen. All right, so Mod 4. Toy, can you give us Mod 4 that first bullet point, please? Not a problem. You have it over, Miss Karen. We'll come back to you, Miss Toy.
I was you said 27, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I don't have 27 pages. I have 20.
Right, so go ahead, Miss Karen.
Okay.
27 in your binder.
The purpose of this module is to use the information from Mod 2 to let them know a little bit more about what these programs are designed for, and to build up some emotion on why it is so important for them to make a decision to put protection in place today.
Yes. So Mod 2, again, any mod that you're in is the most important mod. But Mod 2 and Mod 4 are the most important mods. But again, you must execute all of the previous mods, because if you do not, then you will not make it to Mod 4. But in Mod 4, again, that's why we are going to spend time telling stories, because this is the feeling part of the script. We're talking to them. We are building a friendship. We're building rapport. We're getting their health questions down. But them feeling and making the decision to act today is going to be very greatly tied into how much they feel they need to do this and why, and so on and so forth. So yes, mile 4 is where the emotional part of the decision making happens. Again, this is not like other sales. This is an emotional sale. And mile 4 is where you're going to want to make sure you stay there and get them to feel. So if they are high and they're bubbly and the whole conversation's up here, you want to make sure you bring it down and slow it down. Your tone, your voice inflection, all of that, you should be adapting as you move through the script. Mile 4 is where you're going to get serious. We really want, you're not leaving out of mile 4 without making them feel. You're going to ask the questions. Don't be uncomfortable to where you're not willing to ask these questions, because if you're not making them feel and you're not asking the questions to make them feel, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You're not following the process, and the likelihood of them deciding that they need to make this decision today is probably not going to happen. You ready for us, Toy?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead with the second show.
Change your shirt.
My dress. So
Yeah, it was a
I'll tell you.
cage top. It was
it was. Thank you. It's
Okay.
Now, these programs are intended to help people cover their final expenses, but can be used for anything at all. We want to get them thinking about past experience with funerals and burials. Have they ever had to pay for one themselves? What was that like? Did the deceased have coverage in place?
All right. You see even how Toy read that and she naturally slowed down and her voice went down. Yes, that is what you want to do. So you want them thinking about past experiences. You want to ask these questions. Have they had to pay for a funeral before? If they haven't, you're going to make them think about it. So completely just lost my train of thought when Toy was reading that. But no, you want to make sure you bring it down. You want to make sure your tone, your voice inflection, all those things are important. There is, even though these are final expense programs, there's no designation. So it doesn't say, oh, these have to be used for your final expenses. It's called final expense because they're smaller policies. It can be up to $35,000, but if they're asking, well, do they have to use it to cover my funeral expenses? No, the funds will be assigned to their beneficiary to do with it whatever they choose after they cover your final expenses. Or if they have another policy and you want this to just be a gift of love, that is fine. Again, the final expense, most people do use them for final expenses, and you tell them that. They're smaller so that they can be used for final expenses, but there is no designation. So that is something to be mindful of and that you can share. If they're saying, oh, my final expenses are already covered, oh, well, that's great. Sometimes people have larger policies, which this, I don't know how technical the term is, but it's called, well, selling alongside period. So they call it other stuff and fancy stuff and watchdog policies, and selling alongside a policy versus replacing a policy is fine. We do it all the time. If they have a larger policy and you just want to, okay, well, we'll just get this so that that larger policy can go to your kids or to the family, and this will just be to cover your final arrangements. Perfect opportunity to still provide some kind of coverage, and they can still keep their policy. Or if they have another policy, but it's not that big, you can also sell alongside to make up for any difference that, so again, make sure that you're not leaving your family having to pay for your final arrangements or your final expenses, or to cover the rising costs of everything goes up. So you have a policy that's just now gonna cover what it costs to bury someone now, but you sound like you might have a whole lot more years left in you, so we'll get a little something to go along with it to make up for the cost of living rising. You're not asking them these questions. Depending on how they talk to you or what they tell you about other coverage, or you're going to say, oh, so this is what, there's always a reason why you can offer them a product or a solution to add to what they have, or you may see where they don't have a good policy and this may be a better option for them. But regardless, there's always a reason to add a little bit more. So do not let anyone having previous coverage make you feel like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Give them a little bit more. A gift of love. Call it what you want to, but you can always find a reason to add some coverage. But again, there's no specific designation for these policies. Ms. Crystal with the K, can you give us the third bullet?
Yes, extract more info to make them feel more emotion. How did that feel, etc. Praise them for telling you. Use one of your stories to cement in their minds how horrible it is to be in a situation where one is not covered and what that feels like to the loved ones they've left behind. Certainty and decision statement, and move on.
All right, so in this particular bullet point, if they have a story that they're telling you, yes, they've experienced it, but please, everybody is kind of feeling. So we're the nice box, you guys, just so you know. So anyone that has a story and they're like, yeah, my mom died and she's not really sharing. You want to give a little, oh my goodness, you want to get them to tell you more. You want to pull out that emotion. You want to get them to talk about it. Whether they discuss it or not, and you're getting feelings, you want to give them a relatable story. That's why we'll have a list of them so that we can talk about what they, expound on what they said and go into detail and create more of a picture so that they can really feel it. If they do not have a story, then you'll give them yours. But even if they give you a situation, you want to have a relatable story so that they feel even more connected to you and you're really able to, again, create the picture so that they can vividly imagine their families being in the situation that they were in and making the decision to do something about it. With you, because they trust you and they like you and you're sharing with them and you're giving them feedback and giving them, paying them back for sharing with you. If no, again, question?
No.
Okay. If no, Miss Susan.
Ask accountability question like, have you thought about who will be taking care of your final expenses when that time comes? Or, I'm so glad you've never been in that position. But let me ask you, whose responsibility do you think it is to make sure your final expenses are taken care of?
Yes, and so the accountability questions are built right into the script. Don't skip over them. While you may not, because again, my 2 and my 4 are the most fluid in the script. It's going to give you room to really have a conversation with your client, but you want to make sure that you're touching on those questions, you're asking those questions. So if they have not been in that situation, well, you tell me, have you thought about, and you really want to ask them so that they can think about it. And then you can, at that point, if they have not, provide a story to get them thinking about it so that they can, again, make sure that they're not just breezing through mile 4. Like, you want to create emotion. You want to make sure that you do that. With the certainty and decision statement, after you give your story, you want to follow it up with, so I can completely, so I understand why you want to make sure that you do this today and praise them for the decision that they're making today. So it makes sense to me while we're talking, oh, that's so great because you are just a wonderful person and you care so much about your family. You are a stand-up guy and you're really making sure that you get things in order. That says so much about you. You want to, again, speak that certainty and decision into them so that they're, oh yeah, I am pretty smart, and they're deciding. You're helping them to decide, but by the time they get done with the mod, they're like, oh, I am smart for deciding to do this. So now they are deciding without even realizing they have now decided to decide on covering their. They made a decision because you keep dropping these little nuggets. You keep sprinkling it into the conversation, and they're receiving it. So once they make the decision to do it, they're thinking that it's their decision that they've made. It's not you selling them. Everyone wants to be a buyer, but no one wants to be sold. So you're doing that. You're giving that to them and making them feel like it was their decision all along while you're sprinkling it throughout the conversation. Miss Hannah, excuse me. Can you go ahead with the next one, please?
Sure. If no, ask
The following one.
the what one?
Praise.
Oh, praise. I'm sorry. I was coughing on this. So sorry. Something a little maybe mold or something. I know it does. Praise their answers. Give them something back with your story that relates to their situation. What did it feel like when you had to pay for a funeral when someone didn't have coverage? What did it feel like when you had to pay for a funeral and they did have coverage? And
So yes, that is whether they had coverage or did not have coverage. You can even give two stories within the same situation. You want to make them feel the difference between how, if you have a long story about how hard it was for someone to deal with not having coverage in place and the amount of just the turmoil that it caused within the family to try to figure out where these funds are going to come from and how it takes away from really being able to grieve and mourn, and how much of a drastic difference it is when you do have coverage in place, because it is. Dealing with a loss without having coverage in place and trying to figure all those things out, on top of grieving, on top of mourning, and on top of just paying your regular bills, versus being able to celebrate life and being able to know that that's taken care of. And now we still have to make these decisions, but we're not making these decisions about these final expenses on top of trying to figure out how to pay for it. Two completely different experiences. So you want to give them a little feel good something. That's why it literally has the feel good story. We'll go through the script and then I'm going to have you guys bounce in with some of your stories, but it is literally a completely different feeling. So would you rather your family be, and I know that you would much rather your family be able to celebrate your life and enjoy talking about the things that you like than really be able to have the celebration of life for you, versus them fussing and fighting over this, that, and the third, and who's going to pay for what, and oh my goodness, I can't believe Dad didn't have this in place. You sound like you have all your stuff together. I can certainly tell why your decision to get this taken care of now too is so important to you. I love you for that. You are so wonderful for that. I know your kids are going to appreciate that. How do you think they'd feel if you didn't have it in place? Oh, I know my kids would talk about me. If you have children, my kids would probably talk so bad about me. That's why I made sure that I put this in place before him, because they already have enough reason to talk bad about me. I don't want to talk bad about them. But so there has a client, it was a guy client of mine that said, he said, they talk about me bad enough already. They're not going to talk about me when I'm gone. Makes sense to me. So you want to make sure that you're getting and they will, because it's a lot, but you want them to think about it. You want to give them those seconds. Like, I know you guys are close. Do you think that they think that you already have this taken care of? Or sometimes they may say, no, my kids got it. But do you really want your kids having to use their money to pay for this? Because I know most parents, they want to make sure that they take care of their kids when they're 5 or 95. So I love that you are the same way. Or again, if they're saying, no, they'll be fine, you put a story in there about why it is such an important thing to have in place already, so that it's not something that they're dealing with. Because regardless of how much money my kids have, I want to make sure that they know that Mom loved them enough to have this in place so they won't have to worry about it. And I love that you think that way. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. Most parents do. Get them to understand the importance of not leaving it to anyone. Or do you feel like it is your decision to take care of your final expenses? That's asked at the beginning of these mod, to get them to answer that question. And if they say no, really, most parents do, whatever the case may be, but you want to fill it out. You want to get that. You want to ask the accountability questions. Get them thinking about how they want their final arrangement to go: burial or funeral, burial or cremation, and who will be paid. That is a question, again, that is in the script. Crystal, C.
Certainty. How important it is that they make the decision to have coverage in place. Praise them.
Yes, you always want to tie it up with the praise. Again, it makes them feel good and it locks in their mind that they do want to do this because they are whatever it is you're praising them about. Go ahead with the last one too.
We also want to get an idea here on what an appropriate amount of coverage will be to quote them. Utilize the information from Module 2, where we question them about their employment and where their income comes from to start and develop what you will be quoting in the upcoming module.
So yes, we talked about that in mod, when we're talking about mod 2, but the reason why we asked about their working situation. Are you working, you retired? Because that's gonna help you gauge how much coverage they may be able to afford. In addition to burial versus cremation, how much coverage you're going to. So you know what they may be able to afford, and now you're able to determine how much coverage they'll probably need depending on how they answered. If they just want cremation, then you know that a small policy is probably all that they're gonna want. And you're asking, in the script, it does give you the opportunity to ask, are you just trying to cover your final expenses, or are you wanting to leave a little something behind for the kids? That way you know, okay, well, I really only want cremation, but do I want to quote them 5,000? Well, no, let's go up a little bit because they may want to leave something behind. So depending on how they answer, and with response blocking also, you may want to sprinkle in well, even if you can't cover everything, if they're saying they want burial and burial is expensive. So we do want to discuss, the cost of traveling, things along those lines, but we don't want to harp too heavily. We want them to think about the fact that things cost money. Yes, it costs money. Let me do a little something, but we don't want to go too heavy on the fact that it's all this stuff if they've already been talking about not being able to afford it. So you want to talk about cost, but you also want to let them know, even if you can't cover everything, there are a lot of things that are going to come up. And a lot of times people don't think about the fact that their family may need to take a couple days off of work, or more than the 3 days that they may get paid for, or they may have to fly into town. And those last minute tickets cost a lot of money, and a lot of people don't even think about that. You have the rising and the lowering of the casket, and you have the opening and the closing of the casket, and you have the opening and the closing of the ground. Those are things people don't think about. You rent the funeral home out, and they still charge you to get the waiting room as well. So sprinkling these things in so they can start thinking about, oh my goodness, this is a lot. Even with cremation, you have cremation, but then a lot of times people still want to have it nice to where there may be programs that they want to have your picture on or have some flowers for you. Say flowers and funeral in the same sentence, and the cost goes up 3 times. You want to have these conversations. Weddings, funerals, you say flowers and those two in the same sentence, and they cost a lot more than just Thursday flowers just because at Walmart. So you want them to think about these things. You want to plant those seeds to get them thinking so that they realize the importance of having something in place for their family. Power questions. Use them to fact find, and use them to evoke emotions. Use them to paint your picture. Find which one works for you, but use them all on every call. Why is this type of coverage important to you? What are you most focused on with getting this type of coverage in place? Have you considered what would happen to your loved ones without this type of coverage in place? Have you thought about how your loved ones will pay for your final expenses if you don't have this type of coverage in place? Have you ever had to pay for a funeral before? Would you agree that it is our responsibility to make sure we have our own final expenses taken care of before that day comes? Bless you. If we use these questions correctly, it will get your client thinking about the things we need them to think about in order to get them to make the decision today. It will also set you up to, bless you, to get your stories done. And you want to make sure you're maximizing on your stories and evoking the emotion that you need to out of your stories. All right, so we're going to go into mod 2. But we're going to have some interaction in mod 4. We're going to do a little bit of interaction in mod 4. So, ladies, Miss Madison and Miss Andrea, when we go through mod 4, and you guys are here too, but as we read through, or as I read through mod 4, I'm going to pick on you guys to give me a story that you would use if you were the agent. Pick one that you feel good about, or maybe I'll ask you to give me one, but we're gonna go through it, and I'm gonna call you ladies. I'm gonna put you on speaker. Don't think because you are not here that we will not get to hear your story. So prepare yourself. I'm gonna call you guys on speaker when it's your turn to go, so that you can pitch me one of your stories. So again, be prepared. I don't know if, I'll try to take it easy on y'all because we will, all of you, in here and outside of here. But I want you guys to get comfortable and used to these stories. And I will, at some point before we're out on the floor, you guys should have some feedback on most, if not all, of your stories. So just to make sure they're having the impact you need them to have. Oh, y'all flipping, you getting ready, y'all nervous or
I wrote some of
excited?
mine in.
Okay.
Happy.
Okay, no, I know, I like it. Y'all are getting ready. I like it a lot. All right, so. Who's calling my script?
Well, you said we're gonna like actually so we're not giving details right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or
Give me what you got.
try
Because,
to.
yeah, give me what you got. So,
Lay it out.
my 4, page 8.
8.
Mm-hmm. My 4.
In the-
In the
Oh,
script.
I'm like, what?
Script. So we've gone through, now we're on the script. We've gone through the points and the notes for my 4, but now we're gonna go into the script and actually read through it. So, now Crystal, because I know you wanted to give your story so bad, we'll just start there.
What? No, I did not want to. I barely have the stories.
Now, Crystal, because these are special plans for people within the state of Florida, your total coverage is not able to exceed what they consider to be reasonable need. So we can't go applying for $100,000 or anything like that. We're not trying to make anyone rich. These plans are designed to give your family enough money so that they don't have to bear the financial burden of paying for your final arrangements. Have you ever had to pay for a funeral?
I haven't had to pay for a funeral before, but I have had a friend that was actually hit while crossing the street from a drunk driver. And it was a big shock to all of us, family and friends, and we had no idea how to cover this. And this was before, there was ever such thing as GoFundMe. So we had to put jars around for donations to churches and gas stations. And it was very, very tough on us because we couldn't really grieve. We were more frantic about how we were going to cover this funeral for her.
I like it. The putting jars around and the franticness, paying a little more, putting jars where, and just go a little more into that and keep it going. But good start to a story. Paying a little more, but good stuff. And as far as frantic, beautiful word. Throw a couple more of those in there and keep it moving. But good stuff.
Nancy, so just to expand on what you were saying, Mo, to build more emotion in there, talk about how you had to go to store owners because you were saying around stores and stuff, and ask,
How difficult it was to ask the owner.
right,
Oh,
if I could
just
put jars,
level
to raise the money and.
But
That's-
who and even the who, because you want them to feel how you feel, even though it wasn't you directly. Who's the parent and how is the parent feeling about this? It was a friend of yours, so go into that and how the mom felt, or because whatever. And that's one of the good things about stories too, and having them be fluid and be relatable. You want to if you're talking to a mother, then that is a good perspective to put in there. Talk about how the mother felt and just having to come to you and the friends to try to make this happen. So you do want to make it relatable, but good start to the story. I know I kind of put you on blast a little bit, but yeah, I know. But no, good base. We'll do another one and then we'll go a little further into it. But now, because these are special plans for people, Miss Hannah, We can't go applying for $100,000 worth of coverage or anything like that. I'm not trying to make anyone rich. Have you ever had to pay for a funeral or been around anyone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
Yes, I absolutely have, growing up, one of my sisters had a friend, and one night, sadly, in the winter time, their home caught fire, and all 5 of the children and the parents were burned up in the house, at the same time. So she lost her very best friend, and we ended up, having to help raise money, through the church in order to take care of some of the expenses for that. It's horrible. It's something that we've never forgotten our whole lives. It's stuck with us. And it's just something that I wouldn't want anyone to go through. That's why I work as hard as I do, doing what I do, to try to get something in place, for families. So to ease, lives and emotions and things through that stressful time in people's lives.
So, Ms. Hannah, first and foremost, tone, I love it. That was very there as far as just making it feel. And the cold night and the good stuff. Good stuff. I love the tone more than anything with that, but good stuff. Go a little bit more as far as the dealing with it coming together. What you want to do, because with these, unless it's the feel-good story about how it felt good to not have to worry about having to come up with funds because coverage was in place. We don't want them to feel good about, oh, that's so nice that everyone came together. It is nice that everyone came together, but you want to go into the fact that not everyone has that type of environment where people will come together. So you being proactive about this is huge because we were able to make it happen, but it was still difficult. You want to talk about the difficultness of just dealing with it, period, and not make it sound like, oh, that was so beautiful, you guys did. It's good that happened, but you don't want them to feel good about, yeah, my family is really close, we'll make it happen. You want to focus on the fact that, no, let's get it together so that that's not something that they would have to deal with.
Right.
Okay, good stuff, good start. And again, that tone on that, right, spot on. All right, Miss Crystal in the back with the K. Have you ever had to pay for a funeral or been around someone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
No, I haven't had firsthand experience paying for a funeral, but back in 2014, my mom, she was dying of cancer, and the doctors gave her 24 hours to live. If she did not pass, I knew that her dying wish was to see her only grandbaby, my son. He was in Arkansas with his dad at the time, and his dad is illiterate, so he couldn't just get on the road and drive him to Florida by himself. We tried. Oh man, we tried on the phone to guide him, and there was all this construction, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And we contacted the airlines, and because my mom hadn't passed yet, they wouldn't let him go on a bereavement flight. Because they wanted the certificate of death, and it was over $1,000 to get him from Arkansas to Florida. And we're talking back in 2013, it was just awful. And so after 2 weeks of trying, and remember my mom was only given 24 hours, but after 2 weeks, I finally put him on the phone with her, and she was sedated, so she couldn't even speak to him. But I explained that, his Mimi was sick, and she needed him to talk to her, and my mom had taught him the song "You Are My Sunshine," and so when I put him on the phone, I had him sing "You Are My Sunshine" to my mom, and within 20 minutes after that phone call, she passed away. And I tell you, if it wasn't for my uncle, we wouldn't have had the expenses, even though she wanted to be cremated and it was less expensive. She had changed her mind at the last minute and wanted to be buried, so the expenses went back up. And we didn't have money even for a headstone. And if it weren't for him, thankfully, we wouldn't have had the money to give her a proper burial. But not everybody has that, and I'm blessed for that. But if I had known about final expenses insurance, I would have definitely had my mom get some coverage to make sure that while we were grieving, we didn't have to worry about the financial burden aspect of her death. And it just, I'll never forget the day where I was and what I was doing when I got that phone call, because I wasn't at the hospice when she passed. And it was like I was in a movie, but in a nightmare, because I just screamed out loud and it was so dramatic. But then the nightmare, like I just kept feeling like I was gonna wake up and it was all just gonna be a bad dream. My mom was my rock, and she just, she would take my son out of his bassinet in the middle of the night, and I'd wake up to breastfeed him, and he went there, and I'd be all panicked, and I'd go out there, and he'd be on her chest, and Mom, you gotta let me know if he's crying. I've got to do this. He wasn't crying. I just wanted to hold him. That was her baby, and she held on for an additional 2 weeks just to make sure she could say goodbye to her grandson.
Ooh,
We got me too.
what, that was definitely emotion evoking, and I love that. I hate that happened to you, so I'm very sorry for that. But it's definitely something that's heartfelt.
And she was only 40 years young.
Wow. So that story, beautiful, unfortunate, but definitely something that a lot of people will be able to relate to, the never knowing when, and the sense of urgency that creates is huge. I would leave the uncle part for the end, that, because you want to give them emotion, you want to give them all that feel, and then say, at the very last minute, my uncle was able to come in, blah, blah, because even trying to figure out how to deal with all. So you want them feeling that, and not everyone does have that to happen, which is good. And I love that you're being proactive so that your kids won't be in the situation I was in, so on and so forth, but good stuff. Very, very good. Good delivery. All right, who's the lucky caller? Caller number Madison. Hello. Excuse me. Hello. Have you? So I'm sure you've been keeping up. So my question to you, Miss Madison, have you ever had to pay for a funeral or been around someone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
I've never had to pay for one myself, but this is actually a long-standing family phenomenon we have. A couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, my grandmother passed away unexpectedly. Went to bed one night and found out she had a blood clot, and unfortunately passed away, so no one was prepared. My mom had 5 siblings, and when she passed away, she didn't have anything in place, and my mom's siblings all started to fight over who would pay for things. Was it the person that was the most financially well off? Was it the person that took care of them more often? And there was like a point where they didn't speak to each other for 2 years because they could not settle who was going to pay for things, who was going to pay who back. And to this day, it's still a very much important attention in my family.
Perfect groundwork for a story, and that happens very often. And just talking about how that could have been avoided will be great. But no, that is very relatable. That happens too often, and even with and you too, Crystal, with the not being able to get coverage after that point, once you're diagnosed with whatever, or it being sudden and you can't get coverage at the last minute. Good points to kind of create that sense of urgency. So yes, good start. Make it a little more colorful, but yes, very good start and very, very relevant situation, because a lot of times that does happen. All right, okay. We'll call you back because we'll go through some more stories, but that was a good one to start with.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem. All right. So Miss Madison on the 1s and 2s. Next, we will go with Miss Susan. Have you ever had to pay for a funeral or ever been around someone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
I have never myself had to pay for a funeral. But some time ago, several years ago, I had a coworker, her mother passed away, and it was sudden, totally unexpected, and they had no coverage for her in place. They had a car wash, and it was the saddest thing to see her children and her grandchildren washing cars to get enough money to pay for their mother's funeral. It was really sad.
Yeah. So I love your voice inflection change. That is a beautiful story. You want to talk more about just how even coming up with a decision to have a car wash in the middle of doing everything else, and they made it happen. Yes, but just talk about the struggle a little bit. But
Oh, it was sad to talk to her children about, why are you having a car wash? Well, it was like countless times they had to go through to re-say the story. Oh, mom
and even
passed,
just
we
feeling
don't have any money.
ashamed,
And
that's a good
yes.
word to use in that situation if you guys want to. Ashamed is a really good word to just because you want them to think about that. But I can only imagine how shameful they felt. And I know that
Humiliated.
exactly
Really.
another good one. Yes. Well, good. Make it colorful. Paint that picture. For sure. Miss Toy, have you ever had to pay for a funeral or been around someone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
Well, personally, no, I have not had to pay for a funeral. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was in a relationship, and unfortunately, at that time, my partner's mom, she got really sick. And she was literally diagnosed with stage 4 leukemia out of nowhere. And it was very sad because she actually worked in the nursing field. And she did actually have a policy, but it was a really old policy. And it was literally like drops in the bucket. And what was difficult is because at the time, Ray and I, we were okay, but he had a brother who was in prison. And he had another brother who, I guess you could say, was like a Rolling Stone, literally. He has like 11 different children, so he doesn't have a home. He stays with one of the children's mom. Whoever I'm getting along with now, I'm gonna lay there. So the good thing was that Ray, he was a cook. So we raised money by cooking. We sold plates. We sold, like he would make these apple fritters. And I speak about him in the past because he just died in November. So it's just very difficult because I did witness that. I helped to raise money for a funeral for a loved one that I never even just met. When I met her, she was in a hospital bed in Pewaukee, and she couldn't even talk to me. We talked on the phone, but to physically see her in person for the first time, and not even be able to talk to her, even though I've talked to you on the phone so many times, and we laugh, and I can call you because your son get on my nerves. And she just suddenly died. And like I said, the policy was very old. Like when they found it, they were happy, but unfortunately, like she was a big girl. She was like 5'11". She was over 300 pounds, so they couldn't get a regular casket. Like there were costs that they weren't expected, and unfortunately, like they weren't even able to bury her right away. It was almost a month because of having to come up with the funds.
I don't like this part of the video.
I do not.
But so this is real life. This is why we do what we do. This is why we make people feel and think about things, because if they don't, then their families end up in situations like that. Their families are not, like, we're saying this and we're practicing and we're preparing to talk to people about this, but this is literally real life. And to be able to help someone avoid being in a situation like this and being able to have the tough conversations so that people are not in a situation like this, and being able to be uncomfortably uncomfortable and make someone feel comfortable enough with you and build that rapport so that they can make these decisions. It's not for fun, it's because nobody wants to have these conversations, but it's something that if you don't do it, you don't act on it, then unfortunately the people left behind are left in these situations. So again, we're in training and we're learning how to do this, and it kind of takes it can take you out of the whole human aspect of it, but this is real life. You should leave here feeling really good about being able to help people not end up in situations like that. So while again, that's why we say you're not looking at this as a sale. This is not a regular type of sale. This is off of emotion. You being able to have genuine emotion and really being able to connect with the things that make you want to do this should make you feel good at the end of the day when you leave here and you've helped people put coverage in place. So this is real life. This is real life, but you being able to tap into and have stories that are relatable to make people realize that, oh, I have not thought about this. I do need to take care of this. You help enough people get what they need, you'll in turn get what you need. So the money aspect of it comes, but it's because you're doing something that is a need. Everyone needs to have coverage in place. So we have to be able to talk about this stuff, get this stuff together so that we can present it in a way that people realize this is real life. This is something you can't sleep on. You never know when it's going to come. Everyone has a day that they will need life insurance coverage. When that day comes for you, will you have it, or will your family be in a situation where they don't know which way is up, which way is down? Sometimes the last thing you want to do when your parent, person, loved one dies is to do anything. Some days you don't want to get out of bed. Some days you don't know if you're coming or going. So to have to be in that situation and be grieving and mourning and come up with money or think about money, who wants to be in that situation, or have to sell stuff and giveaways, not even giveaway stuff, sell not even food, sell personal items, sell belongings, hope that you have enough of anything to sell to come up with funds to cover these costs. So thank you for Toy for your story. Thank you for sharing. Sorry that you experienced that. But use that to help other people. Use that to, connect with people so that they'll make a decision to get their coverage in place and not put their family in that situation. So very sorry for your loss of your friend and his mom, but thank you for sharing with us. Okay, so we're gonna call you Miss Andrea. So I hope you have a story. You gonna make it? Y'all okay? And sometimes, remember what I said about bringing it full circle and being able to, at the end of the call, really being able to feel good. Like it makes you feel better when you it's not about just getting the sale, but you get your policy in place and you can feel good about really helping someone get something in place for their family, having a conversation, making friends, doing all these things. Like it feels good. It's exciting to jump back on the phone. Let me talk to somebody and get somebody coverage. Like not only are you bringing up these feelings, but you're helping them to eliminate the situation that would cause their family to have those feelings. So you're a problem solver, you're creating a solution for a potential problem, but being able to successfully deliver the information so that you can provide them that solution is a big deal. It's a big deal.
You know what? Think about how COVID hit the state of Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and think about the
Not
situation.
just the state of Florida, the world.
Right, but just think about Florida. When COVID hit, they couldn't get those computers up. They couldn't get people any kind of unemployment money. You know what I mean? You just couldn't get it sometimes for months. Some people still haven't gotten it. Now, can you imagine being in any one of these situations like these people spoke up in here and going through that pandemic at the same time? That's terrible. Oh my gosh. Unimaginable.
Having real life conversations and really talking to people and connecting with people, you're going to bring up stuff like that because that is real life. In the current situation that we are in right now, a lot of people don't just have extra money. But not only is that the case, but just in general, most people only have enough money to make it to their next paycheck.
Absolutely.
Could you imagine? And this is not, could you imagine being in a situation where your family is living paycheck to paycheck? Your daughter that you told me you love so much is living paycheck to paycheck with maybe just a little bit extra to have a dinner out each week. And then she finds out that she has to figure out what to do because you are no longer with us. And not only does she not have a mom to call to cry with about the fact that she's living paycheck to paycheck, now she also has to come up with funds to pay for you to be put away in a loving way. And that's tough. That is very tough. So, yes, real life, the situation at hand is making a lot more people aware of the fact that things need to be done and coverage needs to be put in place. So, while the world has experienced a lot of difficulty and people are in bad situations, that this has unfortunately, COVID has helped what we do because it has brought death more to light. So, all right, Miss Andrea, have you ever, calling you now? Or trying to, there we go.
Oh my lord.
No, man.
Ryan over here, like, my dog's worried about me, like, oh God.
Well, in that, so then you have a story for us. Have you ever had to pay for a funeral or been around someone trying to come up with funds to pay for a funeral?
Unfortunately, this past December, when we got track in August, my older sister, her mother-in-law was diagnosed with leukemia, stage 4, like healthy as a horse. Every time you talk to her or you saw her, how are you doing? I'm great. Everything is peachy. Everything is fine. Pure Southern woman, never complained about anything. And she got the diagnosis around my nephew's birthday, and she was at the party. Everything was fine. Then it got really bad really quickly. My niece's birthday was in November, and November 11th, she was supposed to start her chemo, and she didn't feel well. And she went to Moffitt, and Moffitt basically was like, oh, you just have a little bit of pneumonia. Let's just do the chemo. And she got the chemo, and that was on a Thursday. By Saturday night, she was in intensive care. They induced her. They put her in induced coma. It got really bad really quickly, and the whole family was just like didn't know what to do. My sister's in-laws have been married for 45 years. She was all she ever knew. And she took care of everything. So it was my sister who basically stood up and, tried to organize everything. But the stress of, she just retired from Delta. She didn't even get to experience life. And she left him with a house, a double mortgage, and the funerals aren't cheap. There's no way that you can't even die cheap anymore. It's really unfortunate, and it opened my eyes to a lot. And after watching my sister go through that, I actually got my own life insurance policy because I have 2 children, and one is a lot older than the other, and I don't want the oldest one thinking that he has to take care of everything and do everything. So I actually sleep at night knowing that if God forbid something was to happen to me, like my kids are okay and my kids won't have to go through the struggle that, you know, my sister's still facing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, her mother-in-law had a little bit of a spending problem, so she had a lot of credit cards and, you know, stuff like that, but now they're trying to figure out how to dissolve a lot of these problems, and it's a headache and it's costing a lot of money, and, you know, it's super unfortunate. I mean, it's funny because my parents went to Italy last year, and my mom starts talking morbid to me and my sister. She's like, in the States, there's this, and this is our life insurance policy. And we're like, why the hell are you talking to me like this? What is going on? And she's like, you need to know, because everything is taken care of. So you need to know where these papers are, because everything is already laid out. And my sister even told my mom, God, I wish my mother-in-law had something in writing of what she wanted.
Well, so that story was right on point. It touched on so many different things and is relatable in so many different ways because, number one, she touched on her own children and them not having to deal with it. She touched on her sister-in-law situation and the fact that the mother-in-law came, it happened suddenly, so that definitely was a sense of urgency there. Painting a picture about your parents talking about not having you in that situation and having things taken care of ahead of time. And also the husband aspect of it, the spouse, because spouses are always put in a situation to where you live more than half of your life with someone and then they're gone. So not only are you dealing with that, but then you have the double, not only the bills are now on you, but the expenses of trying to figure out how to put your person to rest on top of now you have all these bills for a party of two and you're a party of one. So beautiful story, very, very relatable and very in a lot of different ways. The spending part and like nice little subtle things that you threw in there that really helped to create the picture, paint the picture. So good
well,
stuff.
And if you're talking to an older lady, half the time if I was to say that, she would probably think in her mind, oh my God, I do have that big car that I've had for 2 decades.
But several points, right? Several points in that. So that is not that you should use that one story on everyone, but you can definitely don't let it get stale because it's good and it's true and you can feel it. But you touched on something that almost, if not everyone, should be able to relate to. So very good job. Thank you. And
I wish I was there to give everybody a hug because, oh my God, I swear, I'm crying with my eyes all puffy and stuff. I can't sit by any of you guys because I will cry all day.
We'll put you in a corner so you can cry by yourself. Bye.
Nobody put baby in the corner.
Okay. All right. Good stuff, Miss Andrea. Okay. So that was really good. It touched on a lot, like I said. But so you guys are seeing, you understand, your stories are going to be vital with being able to present the information in a way that forces people to realize the importance of having coverage in place and not letting it go by the wayside or they'll figure it out. How rude. Why would you want to put someone that you love in a situation where you are acting now, or could act now to prevent it? And it's not could act now, we're telling them.
We're gonna have to give Miss Toya a whole stack of boxes of tissues.
Miss Toy gonna bring it back together and come back with us and be awesome at this because she's going to be able to really relate to people and get people to feel.
I didn't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean because she gets so emotional telling her stories. Yesterday we were talking and she was telling me about her dog and tears just started rolling.
So yeah, we don't need to give her a blanket that she could just snot all in and get Toya a cry blanket. Just go ahead, just take it home every day and wash it, okay? Yes, Miss Hannah.
You know, you don't always get hit with just one death at a time. You know, death is crazy. It just wants as many as it can get. In my family this year, on the 25th of August, my youngest brother Edward, his wife died. Thank you. And then on the,
Oh, I just needed to sign that.
thank you. And then on the 3rd of November, my oldest brother's wife passed away. And then 2 weeks later, my favorite nephew, on the 14th of November, he passed away. Fortunately, the two brothers were prepared for it, but the nephew's family, they're still fighting.
Great story. Use that, definitely use that. That is true. You can't prepare for, you can prepare for death by getting coverage in place, but you never know what's gonna happen.
We're watching it happen, how fast.
Jason, you came to share a story with us
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This one time.
at band camp.
Girl, you took
That's
the
what-
words
just
right
gonna
out of my
say,
mouth.
let's say,
How did I
and this
miss
one
that?
time at band camp?
It wasn't on the bottom, thank you. Yeah, the one that-
Jason Klein, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
She says, let me get out of here before I actually have to tell a
People are
story.
crying, let me go fast.
This is all full of hormones. I don't do it.
Okay, so, good stuff. We will touch on a few more stories. Let's get through mine 4 and then we'll bring it back and give you guys one more opportunity to give, a story. So, whether they say yes or no to that question, you're gonna be able to move forward. If they say no, well, I'm glad you haven't been in that situation. Well, we're so sorry that you had to go through that. This is if they say yes. So we'll go through the yes part and then we'll go into the no. So if they say yes, they give you some information. You want them, even if they just give a simple yes, you want to pull some emotion out of them. So, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. Whose funeral was it? You're asking, tell me more without saying, tell me more, but you want them to tell you more. So you're asking these questions to follow up. Did you have the money to cover it? How did it feel? And remember, tone is key with this. You don't want to be, oh, how did it feel? You want to bring it down. You don't want them to feel uncomfortable, like, oh, are you trying to be nosy? But no, goodness, you want to sound like you're coming from a caring place because you should be coming from a caring place. But you do want them to think about this stuff. And you want to praise them. You're a strong person to have gotten through that, and then you give them your story that's relatable to what they've gone through so that they don't feel like they're out there. You bring them to the edge of a cliff and then you leave them there by themselves. Bring them to the edge of the cliff and pull them in. I'm here with you because this is what I went through. This is why I do what I do. I was in a situation where someone did have coverage in place, and it's such a different thing. So I'm so glad that I'm talking to you now and helping you get this in place so that your family won't be in that situation that you were in. And let me ask you, do you feel like it's your response? And then you move right back into the script. So you're a strong person to have gone through that. Having to have paid for a funeral like that, I can certainly tell why the decision to put coverage in place for your loved ones is important to you.
Mo, can we hear your
So
story?
sorry.
Go with the question first and then.
My question was like, for if they say yes, our relatable story would be how we also had to go through something,
Yes, you can give them that. You
or
could.
would it be like the feel good story about how we had the coverage?
So it's kind of to agent perspective, or your discretion with that. You want to give them a little bit. I understand. Same thing, similar thing happened to me. If they went into a very long story about how that happened to them and they're crying, you'll feel it out because by this point you are.
Friends.
Yeah, that's your buddy. That is your friend. You don't want to be a buddy. And I say this, there's a difference between friend and buddy often. So I'm glad I said that. But a buddy is someone that they can say whatever to. They are fine with saying, no, I don't want it. Girl, I don't want that. That costs too much, and then they're gone. Versus a friend where you make that connection and they're willing to take advice from you and take suggestions from you. So keeping it professional and still being able to connect with them when you're making that friend in mod 2 versus getting too comfortable with them on the call and being a buddy to where they just feel too comfortable telling you anything, including no, don't want it, bye, call me back, or let me think about it. So you still want to keep that authority. But when it comes to that situation, I would definitely give a relatable story so that they don't feel like, oh, I just told y'all that, and then you're gonna talk about you have to worry about it at all. So you want to give them a little, I understand that similar situation with me, or I saw my friend deal with that, so I completely understand. Or if theirs is so right on point, and you're just like, well, dealing with that, I completely understand why your decision to have coverage in place for your family ahead of time is so important to you. The good thing about us getting this taken care of is that your kids won't be in that situation. Because on the other hand, there is an instance where this, that happened, and they have coverage in place, and they were able to celebrate life, and your kids will be able to experience the same thing because we are talking today. So build them up a little bit if you feel like, oh, they're way down. I want to let them know I understand, but let me make them feel good about their decision to take care of it so that their kids aren't in that situation, their husband isn't in that situation, or whatever the case may be. So that's why you want to have multiple stories, so you can feel out the situation and see what's going to have the most impact in that moment.
I'm probably overthinking again.
Probably so. Once you're good with building rapport, it's just that this is new to you. So because you're good at building rapport, it will naturally come to you what fits in for the situation, what's going to be needed, and again, what's going to be needed to accomplish the goal of the mind. So don't just talk, and just remember why you are in the mind. So everything that you do is with a purpose and is for a reason. So just keep that in mind, and you'll be fine. I have a few stories. I mean, what you want? I usually give. Well, I do have a few stories, but one that I typically use is my dad and his siblings. Always been very, very close. My grandmother passed about 3 years ago now. I keep saying 3 years, so it might be 4 at this. No, it's been about 3 years. I used to say 2, but it's been about 3 years now since my grandmother passed, and she was the sweetest, mean old lady ever. And they joke and call her mean old island lady, but her and I would laugh about it because she just said what she wanted. If she felt it, she said it, and she didn't care. But she thought that she had a policy. I guess she took the cash value out of it a couple different times to use it for whatever she needed to use it for. But when she passed, it was very sudden. And she was very private, like many older island people are. So she had been sick for a little while, but had never really said anything to the family. So by the time they found out that, and this is my dad and his 5 siblings, and again, they've always been really, really close. So when they found out that my grandmother was sick, they spent a lot of time, energy, effort, money flying back and forth from the States to the islands, trying to make her last couple months as comfortable for her as possible. So trying to make sure that she didn't have to, spend that time by herself and taking time off of work and just wanting to, again, make her last couple months as comfortable as possible. So by the time she passed away, they had really spent everything that they had left to just spend on traveling and making her last couple of months something that she didn't have to spend on her own. So when it came time for her to be put away, they had exhausted all their funds and resources, so trying to come up with money to pay for a funeral and stuff. And they fought about who's responsible for what and who was going to pay for what and who spent the most money taking time off and doing this and that. And they bumped heads about every aspect of the funeral. And my dad ended up taking out a loan to cover a lot of the expenses that the other siblings couldn't cover. And he said to this day, he would do it 1,000,000 times over if he had to. But what he didn't realize is that every month for 2 years, when he checked the mail, he said he felt it in the pit of his stomach that he still had this bill coming and he still had to pay for these expenses and relive the fact that my grandmother's no longer here and grieve and mourn and go through all of that for a whole 2 years after she had passed because there was no coverage in place. So knowing that and knowing that he grieved already once when it happened and still for 2 years after just made me feel sick to my stomach, knowing that he had to hold on to that. Again, he said he'd do it 1,000,000 times over, but he hadn't taken that into consideration. And I'm sure that had my grandmother known, it would have such an impact on not only him with dealing with the cost, but also the siblings that were always close. And now, at a time or at that time when they were supposed to be the closest and really coming together, they were so busy arguing about the money aspect of it that they, two of them, don't speak to this day. And I'm sure my grandmother, had she realized that it would be, because she fought very hard to make sure they stayed close. So I'm sure the last thing that she thought when she passed was that her passing would have such an impact on her children. So glad that you are being proactive and that your kids will not be in that situation, because you are such a stand-up mother that you're going to care for them whether you're here or not. And I'm glad that we're talking today. And see. So, most of that is true. Some of it is not. But it's all in painting the picture. You want to get them to feel. You want to get them to think about things. So, if they say no, you give them a story. Grief and mourning is hard enough without adding the financial burden on top of everything else. So let me ask you, Ms. Susan, do you feel like it is your responsibility to cover your final expenses?
Absolutely, and I have done so. I have my very own final expense policy and have had for some years. So my children will not have to worry about that.
Well,
I
that
will make
says
sure.
a lot about your character. Being proactive is huge, and that says a lot about you as not only a person, but as a mother, and I love that. And I'm sure that your girls will feel special knowing that you put coverage in place ahead of time. I know they try to figure it out if they had to, but how do you think they'd feel if you didn't have any coverage in place?
I know my son would take over everything because he, unlike me, he's been through a few deaths, and his father passed away just in September. And it was me, that was my ex-husband, so me being like on the outside looking in, I saw him handle everything, everything. So of course I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know if they had, I know they had money, but I don't know if they had a life insurance or whatever, I don't know. But what I saw was he handled everything for her. So he won't have to do that.
And I'm sure that you are proud that you have raised such a son to be able to do stuff like that. And I know that you will be very glad to know that he won't be in that situation when you pass, and you will be able to celebrate your life and just enjoy the good times that you had together and thinking about the good times you had together, as opposed to having to fight to figure out where funds come from. So beautiful. I love that. Because it's not only expensive to live, but it's expensive to die too. So the cost of living and dying just keeps going up, just like everything else. People don't think about the cost of flowers and programs and how all these things add up. You rent out the funeral home, and then you still have to get the waiting area as well, or you know, a lot of times those funeral homes take advantage of people at the worst times, which I cannot believe, but it happens. You have people traveling, taking time off of work. Have you given thought to whether you'd like to be buried or cremated, Miss Crystal, with a K?
Yes,
Oh,
I have. I've always wanted to be cremated.
okay.
The aspect doesn't come from the money side of things. It's more, I just don't want to be in the ground,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. You know, I know that my son is a mama's boy through and through. And so, you know, whether he keeps my urn with him or has some of my ashes put in a necklace for him to wear around as support, to help him through the grieving process and you know, to hold and touch, you know, something that's still me in a sense, and be able to reflect on the times that we've shared. I want him to be able to have those positive memories wherever he goes and not have to go to a cemetery, wear him in the ground, clean the tombstone, you know, especially because he's an athlete. And I just know he's gonna make it to the NFL, so if he's somewhere in the United States and he can't get there and he's really missing me, he won't have to if I'm cremated. I'll be right there with him, so.
Beautiful. I love that. That's beautiful. If someone is thinking cremation, great follow-up story. If someone doesn't know, great follow-up story. If someone wants burial, maybe not give them all that because you want them to, you don't want them to feel bad about it. And some people have very strong opinions about both things. So you want to, whatever they say, you agree with. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
I love that.
My mom wanted to be cremated right up until right before she was sedated, and the hospice social worker told me one time when I was in there that she had changed her intentions. That she had woke up one morning and had this really awful nightmare and felt like she was going to be buried alive, and it scared her enough that she decided to go against cremation and be buried. I didn't quite understand it, but I respected it, and so, you know, of course she was buried. Her wishes were respected, but it just goes to show that, you know, anything can change anybody's mind, or everybody has their own reasons for their selection.
That
For
is
me, I would choose burial for the exact opposite of you. Because I don't like digging up emotional stuff. As you see, I'm kind of a crybaby over here. And I've lost my father, my grandfather, grandmother, several friends, and I never, ever go to the burial site. I never go. And I feel like if I'm buried, you can choose to go and see me, or you can choose not to. You don't want to be stuck with a bunch of my ashes and like, oh, I feel bad if I throw them away, or what do I do with these things? I feel like just come and see me if you feel like you need to be, or leave me the hell alone if you know, because I don't go. I refuse.
so.
You know?
Good points on both ends, and good conversation to have, period, because you want to get your client thinking about these things. So have these conversations. Do not be afraid to. If they're not sure, be open to having these conversations because you want them thinking about it. What you don't want to do is force them to make a decision or make it complicated. Tell, you know, whatever, at least you'll have something in place so that they'll be able to figure out whatever you choose whenever the time comes. Hopefully you're not going anywhere for a while so you can make those decisions, but at least you'll have some funds set aside so that the kids won't have to, or the kids will have these funds available. You want to ask this question so that you can have an idea of what you're going to quote them. Again, how much money they make, what it is that they do for money income coming in is one of the things that you need to know. And burial or cremation is one of the things that you also need to know. And also if they're planning on, covering your final expenses your main objective today, or would you like to leave a little extra behind for your loved ones? You're asking that question. If they want to leave a lot behind, but again, you know that however they answer the health questions is going to make their rates pretty high, you want a response block from there. Well, you know, hopefully we can at least get you something, even if you can't cover everything, at least you'll have funds available. At least it'll be a start. It'll be something to go towards that burial. They want to leave, I want to leave $1,000 to each of my grandkids and $50,000. Well, remember, we're not trying to make anyone rich. These funds are set aside so they know that, again, they don't have to worry about taking care of your family expenses. And hopefully if it's a little something extra, even if they go to dinner on you, we'll see what we can do. So you want to drop those nuggets to where, well, hold on now, $35,000. You don't want to say $35,000, but you know that 35 is the max. A lot of, depending on their health, 35 may be extremely out of their ballpark, but you don't want them to be expecting to get a quote for $100,000. That's term coverage. That's why when we talk about the product, we'll talk a little bit about the difference between the two. But you want to ask just to see where their head is so you can have an idea of where you're going to quote them or what you're going to quote them. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that because of their health, they may not qualify for the larger amount.
They may not be able to afford it. They can
So they can qualify for it, but it'd be like $500 a month or something.
It could, it could be. So yeah, if I said that, I apologize.
No, I just wanted to be clear.
When my mom died in 2013, we chose to spend the money on the headstone. So she's buried in pine box. We didn't see it was necessary, to put some fancy coffin in the ground. But it ran like, I want to say it was roughly $7,500 just for the pine box and the headstone and the, and to bury her.
Mm.
And I was told that's on the cheap end. Do you know nowadays what the average funeral expenses
There
are?
is a, go in your back of your folder.
Yeah,
That's on the phone.
There's green paper, some green striped paper in the back of your folder. Madison, did you get your package yet? You should have gotten your package. And I'm
The
not
green
saying
and
you-
blue,
it's
green and
green
white
stripe.
cost breakdown.
Yep.
At least my
So-
mom did pay for the burial.
Miss Andrea, that green stripe, final expense breakdown form, sorry, I took it away. It is soft copied in there, but I will get you one. Sorry, I meant to make those prints. On your next break, I'll run out and put all those together. But it gives you the average cost, Madison, not yet, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna have Jason check to see what the, track it. And Miss Andrea, I know you have it, but it's the green stripe paper. But it just talks, it gives you a breakdown of average cost of funeral arrangements, final expenses. This is the low end.
If you look on the back, it's by state, y'all.
Oh, okay, okay, so let me know after 3:30. Now, we don't want to go in, we can, in general, on average, low end, you don't want to tie them down to these numbers. But if they're asking you, you can say, well, usually about this on the low end. But that just kind of gives you an idea of costs. So, and you want to also take into account, and something that you can also add is, and that's now, because the price of bread goes up every year and every time you sneeze, so I'm glad that you're getting this taken care of now. Or again, if they have the cost of living in Hawaii.
It's exorbitant.
Yeah.
So if they have coverage in place now, but it's just enough, or even, who knows, even if they have a decent size policy, we'll get you a little something. Hopefully we can get you approved for something so you can have a little something to add to what you have to make sure that things don't change and you still end up having your family in a situation that you're trying to avoid by getting the policy in the first place. So hopefully we can get you approved and get you a little something to add to that, whatever the case may be. But that sheet is useful from time to time. I don't think I've ever really used it, but it's good to have. I might have put it out.
The average cost of end of life expenses, like what are those expenses?
Last bills
credit
and,
cards and stuff.
but yeah, probably depending on if they're in huge debt, but usually like last little bills that they may have that you wanna tie up.
So those are when you say, oh, the credit card bills or
I probably wouldn't mention credit card specific, but who knows? All kinds of things come up when it comes to passing that people don't think about. So yeah, there are always costs associated. And sometimes even having people have like, oh yeah, I have it in the bank, and it takes time. Or even those larger policies, the 48-hour payout is huge when it comes. It's always a reason that you can offer someone a suggestion to get covered. It doesn't matter what kind of other policies they have. They have a large term policy. Well, when that terminates, at least you'll have this for your final expenses specifically. You're retired, you're working, oh, well, at least you'll have this, because regardless of what happens with that work policy when you're there, sometimes people think they have it, but they don't even know that those go away or they end up being too much to maintain on your own. This will be there regardless. Price lock, whole lot, all those things are beautiful things to bring up to drive home the beautifulness of what you're offering, regardless of what they have.
And especially because you have to show proof of death to
In order
get
to have
to get your
access to all
whole
that stuff.
life term insurance policies to
Yep.
pay out. So you're not gonna get that right away. So then you're stuck paying for those final expenses while you're still waiting for the death certificate to even get that large policy payout.
Yep, and a lot of times larger policies can take months or years because they're trying to look for reasons to not pay those things out. So on average, less than 2% of those term policies ever pay out. and that's literally, you Google that. So that's a nice little tool to drop in your bucket. Yes, Miss Helen.
Hannah. You can-
Hannah,
It's okay.
we said it. You're okay with Helen
Yeah,
too?
I am.
Hannah Helen.
That's
Go
right.
ahead.
You, the people that get just something small, just, you know, you can say them and say, you know, your family's gonna have to come into your apartment there, you know, you live in an apartment, you live in a mobile home or whatever, and they're going to have to clean that out. You know what I mean? Or pay someone to clean it out. You, or maybe your rent is due and they need that extra month or that extra time to be able to divide up all that between the family and get the mementos and things out. And they're gonna need money to keep the electric on, or the water,
All of those
you know what I
wonderful
mean,
things.
or have the garbage picked up.
You will be able to have really good conversations with your clients, which is a beautiful thing. So use all that stuff. Drop those little tools in your bucket when you guys are role playing. Definitely feed off of each other, get some insight. We're going to do a little bit of round robin when we get into role playing. I want to get through these months so that we can get into role playing. Hopefully maybe by the end of the day tomorrow, very latest Monday, you guys will start rotating and it'll be like a round robin, like I said. So, but yes, good stuff. If they have other coverage, this is where you discuss the other coverage. If they tell you right up front that they have other coverage, we're not going to in mod 1 or in mod 2 talk about breakdown, try to, because they don't know you enough, they don't trust you enough, they're really, who knows. By this time, this is where we want to openly start having the discussion about the other policies that they may have. Ask questions, get some insight, because that's going to help you determine which angle you are coming from with how the policy that you're going to offer is going to benefit them, whether they have coverage already or not. So talk about it. How long have you had it? You know, if they've had something for quite a few years, nothing that we can offer is going to beat the cost of what they had, because they've had it for years. So keep that policy in place and you offer something to go alongside what they have. If they have, again, a policy with work, you're not asking, well, do you take that with you after you retire? Oh, okay. Well, and again, some of this you don't even have to directly. They say it, you're keeping it in mind so that when you move into mod 5 and you're talking about the benefits of having prosperity, that's when you're going to really go hard with a lot of times people don't, and it's right into the script, a lot of times people don't realize that policies that you may have, boom, 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 they go away when you leave the job, or they go up and it's not price locked, but you're getting all this information to know exactly how to move forward. So ask the question so that you'll know how to proceed. Okay, so I like to recap just to make sure that I have everything in order. You told me that you don't have it, if they don't have any coverage in place. If they do, then I know you have this policy in place. But you do want to make sure that regardless of what, Johnny isn't having to pay for your funeral, right? Okay, great. So let me ask, if God forbid something were to happen to you today, would Johnny have 10 or 15,000 to pay for your funeral? If they're working and they have a policy with work, then this sentence would not apply. You would want to, again, this is fluid. You want to make sure that it fits who you're speaking to. So in that instance, so God forbid something were to happen to you after you finish working, after you retire, would he have 10, 15,000 to, God forbid something were to happen to you and you didn't have your job still, do you think that he would have that money available? So you don't want to ask a question that's like, yeah, I just told you I have a policy with work. Whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that it is relevant to the person that you're speaking to. So yes, you are reading the script, but you're making it fit whatever it is, your person. It is live, it is yours. You want it to sound conversational and not give a response that does not fit what you have here in front of you. But the purpose is to get them to think. So if the cost of living goes up, if you pass in 20 years, you want to make sure that that little $10,000 policy you have is still enough to cover your final expenses. Because do you think you'd have an extra $10,000 to put with what you already have? So you want to, again, make sure that it makes sense and you're giving them a reason to think about, oh, maybe I do need to get a little something more. right in that. While you're recapping, make sure it's a relevant recap. What do you think that they'd have to do to cover it? So again, if it's 20 years from now, you only have 5,000, the cost of living's gone up. What do you think they'd have to do to try to come up with that extra money? If you did pass and there is no work policy available, what do you think they would have to try to do to cover it? Give them a second, a quick pause, and they're probably going to, don't even worry about it, because Johnny's not going to be in that situation, because we are talking today and we are making sure we take care of that right now. I thank you for sharing these things with me. You have such a big heart. It really shows what type of person you are, that you are thinking ahead about Johnny, so that he'll never be left in a difficult position of having to figure out how to pay for your final expenses. I'm going to do everything that I can to help and see. So after mod 4, now you know whether they want burial or cremation. You know what they have as far as their living, as far as income, you know, roughly where they may fall as far as what they can afford. And you also know what their health is. And I'll go the other way around. In mod 2, you figure out where their income is, so roughly what they can afford. In mod 3, you know what type of coverage it is that they may qualify for, because you've asked the health questions, you've checked the prescription, so you know if it's level graded or modified. And in mod 4, you determine whether they want to be buried or cremated, and if they're trying to leave something extra behind. Those are the 3 things that you need to know in order to process how you're going to quote them, what numbers you're going to run, roughly how much money they may be willing to invest or have to invest. So you have the 3 things you need to start processing your quote logic, to start really dissecting, okay, these quotes, okay, so she's going to be modified and she wants to leave a little something behind. You're also going to want to start response blocking, because you know, again, what the money's looking like, what the coverage type that they qualify for is, and what they want. So those are the 3 things that you're going to, as a professional, know, okay, where they are and what to pull as far as numbers go.
So when you wanted to like start pulling quotes now,
Mm-hmm.
am I doing this while talking about the product, or do I say like, give me a moment?
Nope, because you're not going to present the actual numbers until mod 6. And that's why we say mod 5 is the first mod that you'll want to become familiar with or memorize if you can, even if it's just the points of mod 5. Because in mod 5, we're breaking down the product itself, prosperity, and what it is to, like, the benefits of prosperity. But in mod 5, it's really just basic whole life benefits, the benefits of having a whole life policy, which is it's permanent, it's price locked, it builds cash value, permanent, price lock, builds cash value. Also has a 48-hour payout, which isn't a general whole life thing, but that is a benefit of having prosperity. There's an accidental death rider, so you can really bullet point these things and become familiar with each of the 5 benefits, so that you're not reading along, but you're able to just have a conversation with them about why these things are good and be pulling the quotes at the same time. So we'll take a breather and let you guys gather your thoughts, gather yourselves, gather your tears, which I think have dried up. Hopefully, Ms. Toy, you good? Okay. So take, we'll take 10. We'll take 11. I don't know. We'll take 9. 217. Come back.
217.
Yes. 217.
I might actually watch comedy tonight. Watch comedies.
Yes, let's watch a comedy. That's all I watch from now on is a comedy.
I would like to get
I like
Miss
the
Andrea on the phone and call her.
Yes, we all have. A Macy's card, and we have had it for 2 decades.
You heard that, Miss Andrea? Miss Andrea, she has a Macy's card. She's had it for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
She said all old ladies have Macy's cards.
And you know what?
Ah.
I got my center where I work got shut down.
Uh-huh.
They shut it down. They knocked everybody out. I couldn't work from home. Do you know that it was like almost 2 months before I got one check from unemployment? During that period of time, I had to use my 401k. I had a lot in it, but I had to use that in order to feed myself during that period of time, pay my bills and stuff. I'm still fighting with unemployment. They haven't paid me 9 weeks. They haven't paid me. Isn't that crazy? That's the state of Florida. Now, can you imagine having somebody die that you got that done to you during that period of time? That'd be too much.
You're absolutely right.
But you know what? If they had, which my brothers did, you know what I mean? They had policies and stuff that helped them. My nephew didn't have policies, and his was sort of unexpected, but he did have property. You know what I mean?
Well, that,
But they're
I was
fine.
just gonna say, that worked out, that helped for sure.
But 3 of them at once like that was just too much. That was rough. And there's a third option. There's several options for that. You don't have to just be cremated or buried. There's people who go, I'm going in that mausoleum and we're going to have to pay for it. Well, you know what? I'm sure that there's going to be some money that's going to be needed. There always is.
If they're talking about a mausoleum, they probably already have or know that there's some money that needs to be available for that.
That helps.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching you.
Mm-hmm.
There were like 4 viewers when I went on though, and then there was 2. Who else was on the live?
We said we were gonna try to figure that out tonight.
I'm just interested.
I know 2.
Madison and Andrea.
There's always 3. I just don't know. Oh no, I know 3, because I'm me. I'm 1, but it's always 4.
Anybody who wants to be great should be tuned in.
At least. So sure, I wanna be great. Look at my Macy's card. I just couldn't hold that back. I thought it was so funny. Oh my God, she'd had it for 2 decades. Well, honey, so have I.
Don't judge.
I have it for 2 more. Yeah, right. Don't judge me.
That's not.
Oh, you're still not a tech person, neither am I have to tell you. Couldn't log on to Facebook this morning and it's like, oh no, we don't need to see your user. Oh, sure. So I couldn't, password, whatever, I couldn't get anything going. So it kept saying, open a new account. So I'm like, oh, all right. Name, birthday, email, and you know what it says? Oh, you already have an account. Do you want access? Yes. That's what I'm trying to get for half an hour. It was so funny. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Hello, yes,
Gee.
please. You don't say.
Finally, we're on the same page.
Right. Why do I have two inboxes? That's right.
I thought that was awesome. Oh, I don't want to interrupt if you're busy.
No.
I thought it was awesome when Andrea said that her parents had said to her, look, this is here, it is everything. In my family, we did not talk about anything. There was no show of emotion whatsoever. But that's how people were back in the day.
But that's a good point to bring up too. When they say, a lot of times those conversations are difficult to have. So having this in place ahead of time so that you don't have to
You
have
don't
that
even have
conversation.
to.
Yep, you just let them know
Exactly.
what you did for them
Yeah.
as opposed to, what do you think I should do?
Mm-hmm. They don't have to wonder what mom wanted me to do. Mom will have it all written out.
That
They don't have
is,
to worry.
actually I'm working on a, slowly but surely, working on a, response block, document. I'm trying to get you guys to read through before you're on the floor.
Mhm.
But that's one of the things, yes, not, I
right.
need to talk to my kids, no, we're gonna get this taken care of so that you don't have to ask
You
them,
don't
you
have
can let
to.
them know what you
Exactly,
did for
that's a
them.
great rebuttal for them. The cultures are so different too. I know my parents were so different. The culture in my family was so different from my mother-in-law is a saint. Let me tell you, my mother-in-law, yes, I love her today. And in her family, her parents, they would, for Memorial Day, they would go to the cemetery, take a lunch. Is that weird? I was so shocked. And sit for the day, but everyone did. So when you were there, your classmates were there because their parents were there and you would talk. And it was so wonderful that
It's
they,
not weird, that's
just-
actually nice.
it is, it was kind of creepy the first time I heard it. So what are we doing? Why are we doing that?
Yeah, but that's
And,
actually
and his
nice.
grandmother would, my ex's grandmother would, and she grew peonies, you know what peonies are? Beautiful, oh, white, pink, and they smell so good. And she would spend the entire year growing those peonies because they bloom at Memorial Day. And I will tell you, things you do, you are sharing these traditions without ever saying, oh, look, this is what we do. Because I didn't know that, but my ex just passed in September, and his daughter from his previous marriage said that she's just remembered that grandma always had peonies. She always did. And they did this and this, and like that. I thought, isn't that cool that you pass on to your family
Ooh, that is
without really being,
Wow.
without it being so intentional?
Wow. As I always say, kids pick up on everything.
Oh, they do. They do. I told you I adopted my granddaughter and she has a little boy. One thing I do, I don't know where these, I think maybe sometimes I have this like a crazy mind, but I don't try to say that loud. But I would tell her, I was so in love with that baby when I got her, and she slept with me till she was 8. That's probably a whole new, thing. But I would tell her, lay down, I have to watch you sleep. And the little boy was the same
for like an
thing.
hour,
They had
an
to
hour.
face me. And I really had to watch you sleep.
I'm walking past
My mom still has this.
I'm thinking,
Crawl out.
I'm still at work. It's 1
so that
o'clock
I
in the
go to
morning.
sleep, but
Yeah.
She said she stopped doing it.
I mean, I go to think about
One
everything.
time,
I go to
she had made
daydreaming,
it all
I
the
go
way
to
up
making
to
up
when
dreams.
she went
I
to
made a
sleep,
whole
and I was
invention in my
there
head
the
the other
crib
day.
just watching.
I was trying to go to bed.
Then she knew.
Yeah,
You were on
yeah,
tour.
right.
Oh, that's great.
Over here planning my
I
birthday.
get up and have a go to walk away. You have been watching me crawl the whole time. No, I'm not surprised that I said nothing because that's what I'm an observer.
Honestly, by the time I get done, I will need fun and stuff. I'm gonna do something totally different.
What do you mean?
No, like I said, I'm just gonna do something totally different. I'm not gonna do what I'm always gonna
Give it a
do.
second to think and decide on it.
I mean, I got that now, I'm okay, right? But how I end up is not gonna be cremated and not going to be buried either. Mm-mm. Not cremated and not buried.
What are you gonna do? Chop your body up and feed it to the sharks?
No, I'm not.
Well, you're not gonna give me the deets?
No, I'm not.
That's the
I'm
humid
not
one,
doing
like that guy did on the,
Yeah,
what do you
that's
call
right.
that building that one more moment, you don't like. Double. Whatever he said it was.
Was
Just
it
take away
Angel?
a grain of mezcal.
Angel formula.
Yeah, cause she
and
just,
devil's formula.
yeah, cause she
Yeah.
just took me and she's like, oh, but I ain't gonna tell you. What the
That was part of the angel one where you're building up the.
Oh, the
dopamine.
angel one? Well, I
That
feel
was the
like-
dopamine where you leave them on a cliffhanger.
Well, she still didn't tell me, so.
Listen, I have so many enemies. I've made so many enemies in my life, just being me, that why would I tell them where my final resting place is? I'm not. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So last year, my uncle died, and my cousin come down from Georgia. And he was a little out there, and he wanted this whole big Viking burial.
Viking.
Viking. Nice.
It's completely illegal in the state of Florida.
So he really wanted to send his dad off on a raft and then
Well,
shoot
that's what her
out
father wanted.
and shoot out
Yeah,
arrows
that's what
and
he
just
wanted.
burn it.
That's what he wanted.
I don't even lie, that would be kind of dope.
I see that in the movies and stuff all the time.
Well, that's what he
It's
wanted.
illegal?
Yes, it is.
Very.
They bury like Osama bin Laden at sea.
What the heck? You wanna pull up alongside rafts with dead bodies on it?
Burn it.
I mean,
Burn
but,
it, yes.
but even
What's
after
those
they
things
stop
like that?
burning,
Okay, you know, like.
They did that with Osama bin Laden.
You gotta go somewhere secluded though, you can't just go like to.
I
Yeah.
can understand why it would be illegal. That's what I'm saying.
It
Well,
was out of the
well, I
country of the
mean,
world.
I feel like the body would sink pretty quickly. That's-
No.
But do you want to have just bodies floating like that? Is
That's true, it could wash
up.
It could wash up, sure.
There's so
Yes,
many things that are
like,
not
oh
okay.
my
about
Well, what if you go in the middle of the ocean and do it? It's still
Yeah,
gonna wash up,
no.
sure.
I've seen that on Crime Scene.
We'll just not and say we did.
Okay.
If that was what my uncle wanted. That was his final wishes, was to have a Viking burial.
Well, where is that legal?
It's not.
So,
Nowhere.
My cousin, she lives in Georgia. So anyways, this was all sudden when he passed away. So my cousin came down here from Georgia, and the best that we could come up with was everybody rent some boats. She brought his ashes because they gave him to her his ashes in a cardboard box. And then we went out to the Skyway, and she took a seashell and scattered his ashes at the Skyway.
that's cool.
So I mean.
Well, could you put them on like in the.
No, Crystal.
No, not for the ocean, not for the ocean. Like, you know how like in some movies and stuff, they put them on like a big, tall, like, like wood or whatever pallets and burn them there. So you could put them on a pallet and shoot arrows on the pallet.
Yeah.
Part of the water is part of the Viking thing.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the whole because he loved the ocean. He had a boat. My whole family is originally from here, so on my whole life it was always boats and ocean, boats and ocean.
Right.
So he loved the ocean, and he wanted that's what he wanted.
What?
All right, we're gonna bring
What
us
place
back.
is that where they stack them up? You know what I'm talking about? You see in the movies.
Yeah.
Was it just make believe or it might be certain?
No, they
cultures?
really
they
did
did
things
that.
like that.
They really
Okay.
did.
coming back together, 222, we like those numbers. So let's focus. My 4, pretty straightforward. I thought we were gonna watch a video, but
JK.
something's going on over there. So we'll roll into my 5 and discuss the product. So Prosperity is the product in which you all will be offering to the wonderful people that we speak to that need coverage. Prosperity is a very, very wonderful product. Even if we add additional carriers to our repertoire, or as we add additional carriers to our repertoire,
You like saying my word, don't you?
no, it just, no, it's appropriate both times.
No, I meant the way you said it. Repertoire.
So we're gonna
She's feeling
have,
fancy today.
let's just try to make it through these last couple hours with y'all. Talking for hours a day does start to, so I have to keep myself entertained as well as you guys. So what we are going to do is roll into my 5. My 5, if I can find it, does start talking about the features and benefits of Prosperity. But my point is to say that whole life policies in general, for the most part, all have the same types of features and benefits. So you're going to want to present them as whatever product you are offering, you're going to want to present it like it's the best thing ever, because it is the best thing ever for that particular client, which is why you are offering that particular product to that client. So at this time, we're only offering Prosperity, but there will be a time maybe in the near future that you will have at least one other option. So my 5.
Would the other option be like something that for people of younger age, well,
Maybe,
younger than 50?
perhaps,
Less strict underwriting maybe?
yeah, so the other options that we are looking at does have a more streamlined underwriting process, which you wouldn't even have to make a call. But it's multiple carriers. This is literally just the beginning. So it's a lot that the company will be doing and adding and having available. Right now, we're just getting you guys used to and teaching you the basics so that you can master this. And as other things roll out, you already have the basics down. So, but yeah, as a whole, we are looking to start doing a lot. But right now, focus is going to be Prosperity. If you ever have to pivot to another option, then again, it is a great benefit, and the reason why you're pivoting means that that option is the best bet for that client. So the whole time we are talking to the client, remember, we are building down, we're hoping. We are trying to create a sense of urgency. We do not discuss a product until we jump into Mod 5 after rolling out of Mod 4. And remember, at this point, this is the easiest of all the mods to memorize. So the more comfortable you get with it, the sooner you memorize it, the better you will be, because it will allow you to be able to navigate through the quoting tool while you're having a discussion about the policy and why you've chosen the policy. And real quick, let's do a little recap before we jump into Mod 5. And we will do some more stories. Actually, we may do a little bit more stories before we jump into Mod 5, because I really want you guys to watch this video about Prosperity now that you guys have your contracting done. But our video apparatus is, I don't know what the laptop's doing. So we'll rewind a bit. I actually changed my mind. So I appreciate you guys being so accommodating. But we're gonna back it up. We'll run through, because I want to get some more stories time. I'm gonna send you guys home to expound on the stories that you started last night, but let's run at least one more story that you have not shared, just so you can get a little feedback and do that tonight as far as getting the others ready. I know you started, so let's do that because I don't want to really give you guys too much product info without that video and it's not ready to roll. So pull your stories back out. I apologize for the pump fake and the redirect, but it makes sense. So let's do that.
Flexible.
You gotta be flexible. So what we are going to do actually, I'm gonna do a little bit of a dance. So we got a couple stories about people having coverage, not having. Actually, no one gave a story about having coverage. Did we get a having coverage story? Someone passing with coverage?
No, we didn't.
Okay, no. Okay, so nobody volunteered that one. So you can go ahead with that one, Miss Karen. A feel-good story about someone passing away with coverage.
So many, many years ago, my grandmother passed away unexpectedly. She was hit head-on in a car accident coming home from work. I mean, it was just, she was dead on arrival. And I remember getting the phone call and having to leave immediately, leave my job and go to Tennessee where she was living at the time to go to the funeral. And everybody was there. Everybody, the whole town, where she worked, because she was an LP in a nursing home. And so, I mean, that funeral home was packed. People were out the door packed. And it was nice because she had life insurance and it was covered. And my grandfather didn't have to worry about, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? Oh my God, you know, what am I going to do about this bill and that bill and, you know, the mortgage and property taxes and all that. So it was nice because everybody could be there. He didn't have to stress. Everything was taken care of. You know, it was a grieving process. It let him grieve and let him, you know, do what he needed to do as, you know, her husband for 45 years and be able to live his life and not have to worry about, you know, when everybody's gone and gone back to their life, I still have to take care of all this. It was already all taken care of because she had that policy.
I like that a lot.
I know my aunt stole it and he diamond.
We'll leave that part out. But good story. Talk about how much they loved each other, just their relationship a little bit, and how the celebration of life. Everybody showing up, and it was just such a beautiful thing. You wanted it to be a genuinely feel good. You want them to feel good, and you want to paint a picture. So make it a little more colorful around just how beautiful it was, and maybe talk about the funeral a little bit, and use some adjectives and all of that. But very good, very good. Yes. We'll do feel good. Period. Let's do some feel good. Go ahead, Miss Susan. Give us a feel good.
I don't have any feel good stuff.
Passing with coverage?
Really, I don't know one for that's sad. When my grandmother passed away, it's the only time I ever saw my dad cry. It was the most important, and I was not young. I wasn't a young person. I was not as old as I am. Maybe not Macy's. But and they didn't know what to do. The saddest, I mean, even though, of course, they couldn't afford it, but they didn't know what to do. I grew up in Kansas, and my family's in Michigan, so there was a funeral there in the small town in Kansas, but then she was transported to Michigan for burial. And it was just, seemed to me, of course, like I told you earlier, my family we didn't talk much, so I don't know the exact dollar figures. But to me, it seemed like the most expensive thing, the most overwhelming thing ever. And nobody knew what to do. So I think that's why I have a life policy and I have things written out. So nobody has to go through that because I saw what my family went through. It was awful to me.
Glad that we're talking today so that you don't have to put your family in that situation and deal with that. The not knowing what to do, dig a little bit more. And so what did they do? Were they calling around to do this? Were they friends? So give a little bit of that.
More details to that.
And a little bit more about how they didn't know what to do or what they were doing, which was the wrong thing. And really
when you mentioned sometimes you end up paying more because you don't, I mean, I shop around every chance I get, but not when it comes to a funeral, you don't know what to do. I think it's maybe human nature to just assume you told me, So that's the gospel right there, because you told me this is what I have to do. And they do add on things, and you end up paying for things that you don't have to, and so it's all knowledge, you have to know.
And being proactive and getting things
Being
in place.
proactive.
There's a free final wishes pre-planning guide, which is one of the benefits of prosperity, so that's a perfect thing to add in if you wanna use that story when you're talking about that benefit or, but yes, good. You do want a feel-good story, even if you borrow a feel-good story about something that you've seen on the movies or a client, coworker of yours, told you about, and it just seems so magical, and paint that picture.
You know, now that you mention it, I
Oh,
worked for
see?
State Farm for a while, I know, boy, I'm
Sometimes,
waking up.
that's why the writing it down helps, cause as
Yes,
you think and
As
you.
I was writing down, I wrote more because things came to me as I was writing my story. I was a agent for State Farm, and the office, or the owner of the business, the State Farm agent, her nephew died in a tragic accident. He was like 19 or something. And she had made sure everyone, even the young people in the family, everyone had life insurance. And I just can't imagine who would ever think a 19-year-old would die. But to be 19 and to have a life policy, you would have everything taken care of. So that was a good.
And imagine how his family was able to, especially with it being unexpected and just coming out of nowhere, instead of them trying to scavenge and hunt and try to figure out where these funds are gonna come from, but have that already taken care of and really be able to come together in such a difficult time and make things happen and all of that. So yes, put that down, use it, expound, make it beautiful. I know that's not, paint the picture. Don't make it beautiful, cause it's not beautiful, but yes, paint the picture. Miss Helen, feel good? Do you have one?
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a deviant, but it's a feel good story. I worked in a place with a lot of people. I spent the last 4 years there. Just before the COVID hit, and the place was shut down, we had like 7 people pass away. And what would happen is one of them would pass away, and then it wouldn't be, but they would work all week long, and they would go home on Friday, and by the time Monday came back, they were dead. And we just kept seeing them. They were just dying all around us. They would work all week long. They would make their $1 million in sales, and on Friday, they go home after working their week, and they would die, over the weekend. And I got to thinking about when I first started to work in that company, and I went in there and they were giving us benefits. And they said to us, we're giving you like $50,000 worth of term life insurance. You don't have to pay for it, the company pays for it. And so I told them, I said, I don't want it. And they said, well, the HR person said, you don't have to pay for it. It just comes in the package. It's part of your benefit. You're getting that whether you want it or not. But you know what? All of those people that died, they passed away unexpectedly, all right? And that $50,000 was in place to help their family through that most difficult time. And I'm also hoping that they also had the final expense policies too, that would have paid out faster so that they weren't left just, with nothing, like that, because it did hit them really, really fast. And so that's a feel-good story, really, that there was something in place for them.
A little bit more about and maybe pick one and some specifics and some more feelings. Andrew says feeling words, but not even to you, but just in general. Feeling words are, we want them to feel. That's the whole purpose of Mod 4, is to get them feeling. But with that, I would probably take it down to maybe one and talk specifically about how we want to give them some feeling and not general. And we don't really want to talk about term being there because we want them thinking about this final expense coverage. We don't want to promote term at all.
Okay, well, I'm not
so-
promoting term. I'm promoting how quickly it can happen. The people that this happened to, one of them was from the Philippines. He was a nice guy. I talked to him every single day. He sat probably as far away from me at his desk as you are, or maybe further, because we were really spread out. And he was as healthy as he could be.
So this is where I want you to go with this story.
He was healthy. It was completely unexpected. I know that it hit us so hard, in the center, you know, having talked to him and been laughing and with him and talking with him. And then he goes home and then he's not coming back on Monday. He's gone. We get the news, you know what I mean? Still don't know what happened to him or how it happened. But then, you know, there's his children coming in and, you know, everything. And just, it was just a really hard thing to do. And sometimes you get hit with something like that is just so unexpected, you know?
So being able to have coverage in place
Yes.
ahead of time so that these kids aren't worrying about trying, or the wife doesn't have to worry about trying to come up with funds to put him to rest on top of dealing with his children and just them living a so-called normal life and being able to go through day to day and not have their father there to hug them when they come home, and on top of the mother not being able to hug her husband and love on him because now he's gone and she's still trying to figure out how to pay these bills or where the funds are gonna come from because she had to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to put him to rest. So I'm so glad that these funds were available and that he did have coverage in place so that the life could be celebrated and she didn't have to come into the job hoping that we could offer money, which we probably would have, but the fact that she didn't have to do that and she could celebrate his life and we were all able to say, feel good, feel good, feel good.
That's better. That's
Yeah,
good. That was
yeah.
as good as I could do with the feel good.
You good, Miss Crystal, with the C?
Yeah, I gotta blow my nose again.
Okay, so we'll come back to you. Can we get a feel good story from you, Miss K, Crystal?
Yes, ma'am. So Mo, you know, earlier we had discussed, well, you know, how we felt, you know, when we were in a situation when one of our loved ones passed away that didn't have insurance. Remember, I was 23, my mom was 40 when she had passed, and as traumatic as that was for me, I can't imagine how traumatic it was for my grandmother having to bury her own child. I know I definitely would never want to be in that place. And so a couple years ago, my grandmother finally passed away. And she wasn't very old, but she also died of cancer. And the difference that it made in being able to grieve and process, because my mom didn't have insurance to cover those expenses and my grandmother did. It was completely night and day. I'm more at peace with my grandmother's death. I was able to grieve properly. She was able to plan better. She had us, all her grandkids over. I got them all together, and trust me, that's no easy feat. I've got younger twin brothers in Ohio, a sister in Georgia. There's me, and then the great grandkids, and but I was able to successfully get everybody all together in one place, and it's been the first time in probably over a decade. And
How did that feel?
it was very rewarding, very emotional, but very rewarding to have been able to successfully do that for my grandmother. And she was able to impart things that were part of her life to each of us grandkids and great grandkids. My grandmother had collected quarters from every state and from every year from the time my brothers were born. She had this little book thing, and so she was able to pass that on to them, and just different things, jewelry for me and my sister and whatnot. And it was very rewarding to be able to give that to her and allow her to successfully, and peacefully give her those items to us as tokens of her love. And then knowing that when she did pass, that there wasn't going to be any issue with having to cover expenses of any kind. Her husband was taken care of, and the house was taken care of, all of that. And so I just can't help but remember the traumatic experience for my mother's death, but having had that burden on me as the oldest child. Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay for my mom's expenses? Luckily my uncle stepped up, but he didn't have to. And to transition to another death in the family and have that final expenses all paid for, just, it really made it a lot easier to process the death and heal from it. I don't think we ever really quite healed, but we learned how to manage it as time goes by, and it was night and day, and I can't express the importance of it.
Yes, some feeling words just to give you to add to that, because that was good. But the amount of joy and pride she must have had to be able to have these things in place, and the amount of relief that you felt not having to deal with that, and just the excitement that you were able to experience just having everyone together, and to celebrate, and all the good feelings around just being able to enjoy that time.
Honestly, I was pulling out my butt because even though that is the type of story you wanted, there was no feel good moment.
But
in
that's
it.
what
Like,
that's why we're
we're
writing
even
them down.
reflecting, like, yes, it was rewarding looking back on it, but in that moment in time, man, it ate me alive. Even just getting everybody together and all of us being in the house together was I was an emotional train wreck. My grandmother could barely walk, and seeing her so fragile, just.
So if you can't make that,
I was
feel
pulling
good,
for those feel goods because
you
it
can't
was
make
in
that
contrast to
feel
my
good.
mom, but it was like.
So, but I mean, did it not feel good to have, even because you're grieving still? So it is still a grieving process. But could you imagine just feeling good about being able to grieve and not having to have that additional burden, and it being a relief? Maybe not joyous, but it being a relief not to have to add trying to figure out the financial part of it while still dealing with all of that. Because while it was a beautiful thing to have everyone in the same place, we were all still grieving, and that was tough. But I can't imagine dealing with that on top of dealing with just losing my mom and still having to figure out the financial part of putting my grandmother away. And while my uncle stepped up to help with my mom, at that point, he stepped up to handle that. There were no additional funds to try to come up with paying for my grandma's passing. So I'm so grateful that she had those funds in place already so that we could simply mourn instead of dealing with that on top of it. So feel, make them feel. And it is, yes, it's a contrast for sure. It doesn't feel good. You're dealing with a loss, but imagine dealing with that loss and compounding it with having to pay for it right after having to do. So it's perspective, but yeah, you can pull a little bit of goodness.
I'll work on it for sure.
Yes, write it down, get those words going. Okay, oh my goodness. Where my ladies at?
They're in the bathroom getting tissue.
No, they're here. Feel good, Miss Andrea. Hey, I'm coming to you good, perfect timing, because I'm calling you, honey. Feel good story, Miss Andrea. Miss Andrea? Is that you, honey? Can you hear me now? Do we need to try you back in a second?
No,
There you go.
okay, here we go. Okay,
Feel good?
feel good.
Yes.
All right, so, no one ever likes to talk about that, okay? It's a super touchy subject, loved ones come and go all the time. It's great when you have loved ones that have coverage, and are taken care of. It's a lot when you have a loved one and they die suddenly and you realize that they were not put together. They are a mess and they left you a mess. My grandfather actually, he served in the military, and he suffered from dementia, and he was put in a nursing home. And during COVID, we would all take turns and go sit by his window and have conversations with him. And he was all good spirits, but, you could tell that it was affecting him. And, he passed in September, and no one knew what he had. My grandmother didn't know, no one knew what he had. And it was a couple of weeks later, and my grandmother calls my mom, and she's in she is frantic. And we're like, oh my God, what's wrong? She says, you need to come here right now. You need to come here right now. So we go to the house, and my grandmother got a check for $100,000. My grandfather, behind her back, got both of them a life insurance policy. Big hoity-toity, a big old policy that his burial was taken care of at the military base, at the military cemetery in Bushnell. Everything was completely taken care of for him. My grandmother is able to receive his Social Security for 2 years after his passing. And it's just like one of those situations that my grandmother was always the one that was in control of the finances. So she had no idea what my grandfather did for her. And for my mom and my aunts and my uncles, because it took a lot off of their plate, because they didn't have to worry about keeping my grandmother's mortgage alive, or who was going to pay for her car insurance, or who was going to do this for my grandmother. He set my grandmother up to where she doesn't have to worry about anything. Final expenses aren't just about older people and older people being okay. They're about younger people too. My aunt died in a horrific car accident, and no one knew she had any coverage. And my cousin, when she was 21, she got $25,000 for 10 years. Every year on her birthday, she got $25,000. So it's not about how much money you want to spend, or how much money you're willing to spend, or how much money your family is worth. It's about just making sure that if God forbid you don't come home, your family is taken care of. And that's the main thing. That's the main job that I'm here to do, is just make sure that your family is taken care of and bring joy to your relatives that are up in heaven having a whiskey with, all these famous people that have gone now, and they're looking down and they're like, oh my God, I'm so happy that I set my family up so that way when I'm gone, they are able to grieve in the way that I want them to grieve. I want them to celebrate my life. I don't want them to be like, oh my gosh, she was a mess. She left me all these bills. I gotta worry if she wanted to be burned or buried. You don't want to have to worry about that. You don't want your family to have to worry about that.
So, very, very good job. A couple of things on that. I was done once you said whiskey in heaven. Good stuff. So, my question to you, Miss Andrea, are you giving me, did you write these down?
She's like, what?
I know, but I want you to write them down, because a couple of things that you said, I don't want you to lose in just delivering it, because that is a really good story. Takeaway that, a good takeaway for that would be, even if it's not thousands of dollars, even if it is simply just making sure that they don't have to come out of pocket to pay for these final arrangements, just the relief of having, or the joy of being able to not have to fend for or figure out or find or scavenge for these funds is a big deal. It's a difference between trying to just celebrate life versus not. So I love, love, love that. Use your stories, yes. We don't want them to dwell on the amount of coverage and all of that coverage. We want the feel-good part of it, but even just saying money behind, I do really like about the older aspect of it, and the siblings not having to worry about the mother. But even, again, without having all the extras, because some people may not be able to have all the extras, especially because these are smaller policies, but just more so not having to figure out where the funds come from on top of, yes, on top of everything else. But Very good stuff. Write them down. Use some feel good words. Keep it going. Good stuff. Your energy is good, and your passion behind it is really good too. So keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. Feel good. Make us feel good, Miss Toy.
Well, October 13th, 2020, I lost my best friend and my doppelganger. That's my grandma. And I'll show y'all pictures of her when I tell you I am my grandma. I am my grandma. However, I was also my grandma's insurance agent. So when my grandma passed, no one had to worry about anything. She had even taken extra measures that I wasn't even aware of. Her and my grandfather, they had done the prepaid funeral arrangements through the church. They already had their caskets picked out. They had a menu planned. Everything. Like, she only had one request, that she was buried in some fuzzy socks. Because my grandma loved her little fleece fuzzy socks where you put the little toe ones, and everybody went out and bought some socks, and it was, well, who got the best ones? Because which one was grandma gonna wear when she was here? Or what would mama wear? And, well, we can put this pair in here by her and put that pair over there, but put this pair on her feet because she gonna want all of them. Because that was grandma. And, like, it was a beautiful service. We have a really large family. My aunt came in from Tennessee. I had aunts and uncles come in from Rochester, Buffalo. Cousins come in from California. Like, the family we have here, we're stretched out as far as Lake City, Ocala, down to Miami. So everybody came together because she was also the last living matriarch. My grandma, she was 93 years old. And when I tell you she was amazing, absolutely. My grandma taught me through birthing a 9.5 ounce, 22.5 inch long boy into this world over the phone. Not a doctor, not a nurse, my mom, my son's grandmother, his father, like, everybody was there. They were stressing me. My grandma, where is she? Because she was sick, she couldn't come in. She got on there, they were like, your grandma's on the phone. She's like, put me on speaker. Crystal, CJ, well, no, CJ, you can stay. Crystal, Daisy, y'all get out of there, y'all stressing my grandma, my baby out. Get out of my grandbaby room right now. That's my grandma. That sweet little lady, but she is firm. Get out of there. All right, now, Toy, it's your first baby. You got this. Did your water break? Yes, Grandma, it broke. Well, they told me you were already 7.5 centimeters dilated. Yes, ma'am, I am. That was 10 minutes ago. I'm fully effaced. Well, baby, let's push this baby on out. It wasn't even 5 minutes. It was exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. My grandma was on that phone and my son was born.
So the joy and relief and being able to enjoy those memories and feel the feelings and love on your family as opposed to stressing about everything else. Yes.
We didn't have to worry about anything. Like, there were measures taken that we didn't even know about. So the policies and everything that I had written, when they were literally just a bonus.
So that's something that's beautiful also. So yes, love that. Get some feeling words in there. But having the bonus and having having extra money, even if it is just a little bit of something, if they have more coverage, other coverage, whatever the case may be, it's always just a little gift of love. You know, that is a huge point to bring up if they have coverage already in place. Miss Andrea, the doing it behind her back part of your story is big, and that is some response blocking that everyone should be able to, willing to think about being able to slide in at some point in time. If you have a client that is talking about the spouse, and it sounds like they're going to say, well, let me talk to my husband, let me talk to my wife. Having a story about being able to do this for the person so that they don't have to stress about it, because who wants to think about losing the person that they love? But to be able to have this in place and take care of it, I love that you're doing that for him. And you want to be able to drop those nuggets in there and get them to agree with you so that they don't come back and say, well, I need to talk to him about. The grandmother always took care of the finances, but he still made sure that he did this so that she wouldn't have to worry about it when he was gone. Big, 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 big. So if, in addition to your stories, jot a line down in there about adding that in, but that is a wonderful response block for those individuals that may be discussing or talking about their spouse. So when they're talking about how much they love their spouse, and when you're in mod 2, listen to those things that may, husband cup time. So go in. You really love him. That is so beautiful that you love him so much and you guys are so close. I know when you're gone, it's going to be very difficult for him to deal with you being gone. So I love that you're putting this in place so he won't have to worry about losing his best friend and then still trying to figure out how to come up with this money. He probably doesn't even know how to find his socks without you. So I'm so glad that you're doing this for him. So it's one less thing for him to worry about when you're gone, and so on and so forth. So you want to be able to pick up on those things and bring them up prior to when you're dropping quotes and bringing all this stuff up. So stories are like built-in response blocking mechanisms. Okay, we're gonna make one more call. Miss Madison, I hope you're ready with the feel-good story. Let us see. Hello.
Hello.
Are you ready to give us a feel good?
I am.
Yes. A colorful feel good?
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
So my grandfather passed away a long time ago, like 10 years ago, and his wife, my grandmother, was a very, very prideful woman. She was stubborn and amazing, but she continued to stay in the old broken down house on the side of the beach that my grandfather had built for her. She never wanted anyone to take care of her. But eventually she got to a point where, she was having trouble looking after herself. One day, this just proved her stubbornness. My dad got her a cell phone plan and a cell phone. And she kept turning the cell phone off every single time in between when someone called her, because she thought that having a cell phone on cost you money. So she hated people spending unnecessary money. She did not want anyone looking after her. So she got to the point where hospice had to be called in, and we all went to go to her house. We got to sit around her bed and spend time with her. And but we all knew that she had gone on holiday and gotten that in place, because I think there was no way she was ever going to be able to fully relax and enjoy her final time if she knew that her children were going to have to pay for anything at all. That was like her worst nightmare. So we all knew that she passed away peacefully and that everything was taken care of when she did eventually pass.
I love the stubborn. I love the prideful. Now give a little more feeling behind the aftermath of that and how it wasn't something that they had to worry about, and how they were able to know that, she lived a good life, and now that she's gone, they are able to, breathe a little bit, but know that they didn't have to stress about trying to come up with funds and so on and so forth. So a little bit more about the aftermath and the fact that it was so much easier with not having to deal with that. So some more feelings about that part. Yes. Thank you. Andrew's in the building. Okay, good stuff. Good start. Keep them going. We'll get you what. Yeah.
Through it.
We're talking about stories. What? Understanding the why behind everything that happens, right? Stories are an energy exchange. They're giving back to the person who has given to you. If you build rapport correctly, they're going to open up to you. They're going to start talking. Right? Between the questions, you either their voice change wherever it is, and then you, oh, that's the thing. Tell me more. And you get them to open up, and they give you something about themselves. You say, great. You keep going. It's kind of like, ooh. But when you praise them, and then you tell a story that is relatable, whether it's a field, any of the versions of the stories, and you have it precise. That's why writing it down is so important. When you practice it a little bit so that you know the word, you're not going to allow yourself to accidentally get off on a tangent of 12 minutes in a story because you're feeling it too. But the big picture is giving back to them, right? And you always want to, and this is something too that we can work on, have transition back. So I know we're just giving a story from a vacuum right now. So what are we transitioning back to? But the way that it's important that we remember, when you're giving that story, you're going to have to keep going after that story. So there's going to be a transition, and knowing where you're at, you'll know where to be. But the transition always has to be, and I tell you that because, and you made me think of that because I can certainly tell that you love your family, and the decision to protect them brought that up in me, and I'm grateful that happens. I don't get to connect. I don't get praise, certainty, and decision. And then you're back into to whatever the next thing is. So your transition wherever you are at any given time is always going to be praise, because that's what the story is, really. It's saying, hey, I'm like you. We're the same. We're both people. We get it. Thank you. I can see why this is so important to you. Or let's say it's a story that's about someone that didn't have coverage, a bad situation, that got worse because of money. And I've seen it happen, and here you hear it all the time because they'll open up about. Have you ever had that? You guys are in Mod 4. Is that why we're talking about? So especially in Mod 4 now, Mod 4 gets emotional by design because people don't want to think about it. Most said it. No one wants to think. The husband doesn't want to think about the wife dying or me dying, right? But what you really don't want to think about is the pain that your kids might be in, or the additional suffering that you could have prevented. So we don't want to accuse. We give our story. And then we say, but we'll never have to worry about that because you're talking to me today. So the emotional, I don't remember who was giving the story, but it was like, it's not happy. It's not feel good. And you're right. You're right. And maybe feel good is even the wrong way in Mod 4. It's more of it's nice to know. And I'll tell you what my feel good story is, because this has a different perspective that I think is going to help you guys. That's why I asked if you watched the video. I can't remember if I said it in the video. My dad was the first policy that I wrote here because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I knew what I wanted, but I needed to go through an underwriting process. I needed a ringer and the dude, right, to go through it. So I did. I went through the process and I practiced with him because for a few months, it was just me trying to, way back when. And my dad did great. We went through underwriting. He got himself a little policy, was happy about it. And I thanks Pops for helping me out, right? And I moved about my business. And as the days went on, he calls me up out of nowhere. He goes, Andrew, I would have gotten that just to help. I would do anything to help you. I never thought I would be able to afford anything for you guys to have to cover my final expenses. And I never thought about it. He said, when you brought it to my attention and when I saw it was there, I figured I'm going to do it because I love my kids, but I'm still never going to think about it. I'll be dead. He said, but you know what happened? I noticed I was walking through the store and I felt a little bit lighter. It was like if something had been removed from my conscience, from my chest. It was like a weight had been lifted, and I didn't even know. It was such a neat feeling. It was almost a tingle as I thought about it, and I didn't know what it was. And then it dawned on me. I'm enjoying the fact that I have this coverage in place for you guys while I'm alive. And I got chills when he told me. And I said, that's going to be a story that I tell. Because that, in essence, is a feel-good story at a time when maybe we're not, right? So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But the purpose of doing it is if we are executing the process correctly, they are opening it up and they're giving something to us, whether it's in mod 2, whether you never know either, because once we get the process down, you don't just sweep an opportunity to connect under the floor. It may happen in different spots. Knowing the why and all the different stuff comes with doing, but it's an energy exchange. If you don't give that back, they're not going to consciously think in that moment, thanks for giving back, Toy. I appreciate that you just gave back. I'm going to continue to listen to you. It's a feeling that they get or don't get. It's a drop in the bucket of I trust you or I don't, right? And that, at the end of the day, is the only thing that they are buying or not buying, is their emotional trust to believe that what you're saying is going to be the thing that you're saying it is. So be creative and use your imagination. This is a gray area because you never lie. You never want to be dishonest in any way, in any place, ever, especially not here. But you may not have experienced all of the different things. But you know people that have. You've heard it somewhere here today. You've heard 8 different stories. Maybe there was something there. And when it's time to present that, it's somebody I know and I work with tells me all the time. And then you go into that story. And you're telling that story. It didn't necessarily happen to you. But if you're using voice inflection, and if you're pausing, bringing your voice down here, then coming back and telling the story like it was you, it has the same energetic. Right? So you don't get tripped up with, it has to have been a thing that I personally went through and experienced. Because that's not serving you or them. Because none of us have experienced everything. So we want to be able to hold as many perspectives as possible. And the last piece I want to give you guys about this, because it's something I learned the hard way as we moved through Building Guide to Insure. If you're good and you're able to connect with people, then there's a trap you got to look out for. Because it means that you're a very genuine and an authentic person, which means when you open up and give back, you're doing it because you care. There's a piece of you in the situation. And as you move through your days, giving that and not always having it be reciprocated doesn't always go our way. There's a toll that can be taken emotionally on you because everything's it's a feel. This is what this whole thing is. So you got to be aware of it so that you do certain things for yourself. You put certain things into the process that are closing the emotional loop. Okay, and the way that I learned that was through feeling. But one of our agents, Claire, I was on the topic. I was thinking about it. How do we make sure we feel good all the time so that we're the best versions of ourselves as we move through any given day so that we perform at the highest level, make the most money, whatever abundance is for you? And I heard Claire outside my office. I just heard her say, now you've done something today that is incredible and is a sacrifice that you've made for the people that you love. And it's very important. I tell this to every one of my customers. You need to go out and do something for you today. Go do something nice for yourself today. Reward yourself for the sacrifice you just made for the people you love. It could be taking a walk outside. Could be buying yourself a whatever. Whatever you like. Go do something nice for yourself today. Make it a point. Now, that closes the emotional loop for the customer. For you, you just put this positive, it's a positive thing. It's an emotional ride to get there effectively, but it's a positive thing. And the little brief remembrance of that, the little comment for the person to go do something for themselves, and by the way, that is a mod 9 worn down situation that we'll get to that happened in, adds value to you. It helps close the loop for you. It may remind you to do something nice for yourself. Because if you're not operating at the best version of yourself at any given moment, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not hurting anybody else. So remembering these little emotional tie-ins and loops help to keep you in a place where you don't fall victim to your own emotion. You are the one wielding it at all times for the betterment of everybody that you interact with everywhere you go. Wait till you find yourself in the grocery line and you're praising the clerk. Just throwing praise out there. Man, I love the way that you did that thing right there. That was amazing. Do people tell you that all the time? And watch their body language change. And watch them look up. You just said a nice thing to me. It's like, it's powerful. And then it becomes just what you do, right? Your stories are so important in the process. And that's why we spend so much time on them. That's why they need to be so precise. Andrea, fantastic story. Passion behind it. You can feel it. The thing you need to watch out for, and I'm not taking anything away from it because it was fantastic in every way, and Mo hit on some things that were perfect. If you're not careful, you'll keep going, right? Because a person's listening, they're engaged, it's happening. But if you didn't write it down and you didn't practice it, you didn't know exactly how you're going to move through it, the way you want to move through it, how you're going to close it, transition with praise, certainty, and decision as we move into our next piece, you leave open the door for yourself to go too far down the rabbit hole. And now that first 2 to 3 minutes that had impact and feeling becomes 6 or 7 minutes where you start to lose them, right? And it negates all the beautiful stuff you did. So I brought that up with Andrea only to prove to reinforce the point of how important writing it down is. If you guys were going to be going to Broadway tomorrow and you had to give a performance, I mean, I hope that you would know your marks, your lines, the facial expressions they wanted you to give. Every piece of everything would be precise, right? And that's what this is, and that's how you make the most money, also it's how you help the most people. And for a long time for me, it was all about making money everywhere I went and all the business that I was in and every biz that I ran. And that has changed for me over time. My definition of abundance is different now, and I got to remember that when I'm talking to us because we're here to make money. Helping people by doing it correctly and learning these things we're talking about is going to help you make the most money, right? So it's a piece that's important to feel and remember as we go through the deal. Yes? Make sense? Not too much for you? Like, all right, one dose of Andrew, it's night-night time.
That was good. Thank you.
I'm going to listen to some mic calls. I'm going to be listening and watching everything you guys do.
That's gonna be
Good stuff. I hope y'all took all of that in.
Yes, that was informative. That was good.
Good.
That was something.
So I'm glad I came back to the stories because I do want you guys to feel and see and know and understand and get yours down. So I'm actually going to, which he may have touched on a lot of it already, but I'm going to play his quick vid for storytelling because I think we did not touch on that one or his Mod 3 quick vid. So we'll do the Andrew quick vid for Mod 4. But you guys probably got a better version of it just now. But let's see, because I only think it's like 4 minutes maybe. Are you guys feeling and seeing and understanding where you can add more to your stories and kind of develop them?
Yes,
Okay. We're
we
gonna,
expand on it, we realize we've held back some, you know what I mean?
I took so many notes, I'm gonna have to like retype.
I'm gonna give you guys a few
I'm
minutes.
hearing y'all stuff, I'm like,
No, that's very good, that's needed, and
The last 2 things that he taught us were really good. I mean, it's great,
yeah.
It's like his
close
dad.
around.
Oh my gosh, I'm walking a little lighter in the store. And I couldn't figure out what it was, but you know what? I'm walking a little lighter now because, I've done something really nice for my family and I know I can enjoy it. That they don't have to worry about this anymore. That was a great one. And then, you just made a huge sacrifice today for your family. Go do something nice for yourself. That was great.
that is a Mod, like you said, that's a Mod 9 witness that you guys are going to want to use, and we'll talk about the warm down, but Remember, the warm down is definitely something that you guys are gonna wanna spend some time with. It's not something that you are going to want to brush over. That's where you're reminding them and tying everything that you've done down.
And Maureen, you
Yes.
bring out a lot of great points too. And I've learned so much.
Oh, you don't need to stroke my ego because you were talking good about Andrew. I'm good.
That's not why I do this.
No,
I'm
kidding.
serious.
I'm kidding. Well, I
You
appreciate
really
it.
are quite impressive at this.
Um,
Who taught you to teach like this?
Who taught me the process was that guy. So
Yep.
learning it and doing it and giving it back to you guys so you can kind of just happen.
Mhm.
But yeah, Andrew taught me the process. I think I broke something. So go ahead and take notes, write stuff down. Take some time with your stories. Use some of what you guys have heard from your peers, and do notes. This is going to be part 2 of many parts of really getting these stories down. Bless you.
God bless you. I'd say allergy. Is that right?
I think it is.
Whew, okay. So we'll do this just for a second.
Oh.
Because our air cut off.
Girl, you just make me wanna run outside into that sun and absorb all that vitamin D.
Huh?
I said you make me wanna run out that door so I can soak up that vitamin
You
D.
can run out, just run right back in.
I go out there, come right back.
Yeah, we'll do that for just a second because I know we've been in here for all day. And I want to try to see if I can fix this for us too.
That might be a good thing she just did too. Because we might have gotten like a little piece of something out of the air vent or whatever. Every once in a while.
Mo, is
Yeah,
it
just
doing,
air it out.
is it doing something specifically? Maybe I can help.
I think it was this that had not sent it out between the two. I'm on Wi-Fi on this one, but that one was updating for a long time. Yeah. So we're gonna be closing our
I
eyes.
can't imagine having that many.
Yeah, those are the ones I do Sunday school for. Probably. One time I had to do them all by myself and I had like 14 kids.
I used to do it twice a week. I taught on Wednesday nights and Sunday. Twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday night.
They just do it every Sunday. They're up a little bit. It only gets difficult if you get into too many more. You get tired. I can't hold you again. They actually learn a lot.
Ours was set up like a big center like this. They had different teachers in different groups. They were all in the same area.
Well, that one,
Nobody left.
that's what we're gonna do.
The thing that I sent you just has her cell number.
Okay,
she
so-
might call them at 800.
Yours ask you how old you are. Yeah, they barely know my name. They know me every day. They see me every day. What's my name?
Crystal.
No, they don't say it. I had the same kid. Well, now he's moved up. He's to the 3-year-old group. From 1 year old to 3 years old, and you know my name.
My nephew, God bless his heart, and like I remembered it, but I was watching a video from when he was,
Okay, guys.
he's 5 now, but he was like 2 and tried to say my name and it came out Crookcroft. I was in Crookcroft for the longest time.
I mean, it's usually
While you guys are, pause for the cause. While you guys are, why is Andrew still on here? While you guys are doing your stories, we're going to, as you're writing, I'm gonna do my 1, 2, 3, and 4 quick bid from Andrew. This will give us a chance to kind of recap. But also before moving into the Mod 5 prosperity stuff, because I really want you guys to listen to that video, so I have to do a little bit of back end stuff to get that ready. So while you're doing your stories, keep an ear open to Andrew's recaps of the first 4 mods. If you want to flip to that page in the binder, as we go through it, you know that for each mod there was a note section. So if you guys want to have that mod note section open for each video, just in case it's something that you guys want to jot down while you're doing your stories. So just keep an ear open. It's probably not anything that we haven't talked about already, but Andrew's perspective is always a good thing. So we'll run through those while you guys revamp, tweak, add on, and build your stories up. Okay?
Typing them or what?
Huh?
Typing them up.
Typing them up. Well, get them down before Monday. You guys should have them all typed up, at least one for like completed versions of all of your
Oh,
stories.
so we're just like,
Adding to building. If you get them done today or tomorrow, that's even better. But yeah, you want to get your stories down. Down.
I'll have mine typed by Monday. I'll do it over the weekend. That way I can print it out, you know. On the computer.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Fingerprints out of these classes from earlier.
All right. So this is obviously model 1.
Alright, we are rolling, hey guys. So this is the first little in between the why of mod 1. We're gonna be reading through the script, putting all the pieces together. But the glue that makes everything work is understanding the feeling and the why behind it. There's a million different situations you're going to encounter as you move through the process on a day-to-day basis. And every time you do, you learn a little something new that's going to help you be a better and better agent. But understanding the why, the feel that we're attempting to get from every module,
You guys
how they
can
feel
hear?
on each other, is a big piece of the puzzle besides the words themselves. So mod 1 is the introduction. It's hugely important. When you say your name, final expense department, you begin to speak, you need to sound different. You need to sound like you're excited to be there. It doesn't have to be over the top, but it needs to be authoritative and sound a little different than that person that was just on the other line. You're not a telemarketer, right? You're a licensed field underwriter, and you're about to go on a journey with somebody, and you want to sound a little different. Right up front, we want to engage them. We want them to know that we're grateful by the sound of our voice, right? We're going to be giving them information, and we want to be certain about the information that we're given. In your script, you'll see that the state is bold because you want to emphasize, you want to say the state as often as possible. These special Florida state approved final expense and burial protection plans. These special 2020 state approved plans there in Texas. Right? Make it sound unique and special and important to them, because that's what's going to start piquing interest. Now, you're going to get a lot of stuff in that introduction, and how you think about whatever happens is your attitude. We want to have a great attitude, right? So nothing ever that a client says to you before you build rapport can be taken as any truth whatsoever, because the folks they don't know you. And they're making instant judgments and decisions in their head based on how you sound right up front, if they're willing to give you their time and their attention to listen to what you have to say. Now, what a lot of folks will do, just out of common response from having people call them or not want to talk on the phone, they're gonna come up with an objection real quick. I don't have time. Whatever the objection is, we do not engage those objections, because nothing that they say before we build rapport can be taken as truth, right? They're feeling you out. They want to see who they're dealing with. And the folks that come with a big objection in the introduction, those are the ones that are going to be real quiet and listen to everything you say, as long as you don't say, oh, okay, can I call you? Was there another time? That's not what we're doing. Now, that may be the case, but we don't know that, and we're not taking what they say as truth in the beginning, or we're never going to get into calls
Our day's you're gonna go through leads, you're not gonna get to where you need to be. Our response is always gonna be, I know how valuable your time is. Me too. I'll get you the information as quick as I can. And we keep going. We don't wait for an okay. We keep going. Right? I don't even I don't even know if I want final expense insurance. No problem. It's just an informational call. I'll be as quick as I can to get you back to your day. Go. Nothing they can say. You can even make it real simple on yourself and say, great, okay, I understand. And right back into what you're doing. Because we're getting them very valuable information. If you knew that that person on the other line was going to pass away tomorrow, and you knew it for certain, would you let them hang up with something in the first minute and a half of, hey, my phone's dying, I gotta go do this, I'm driving. No problem, great, cool, and you just go. Because you would never let them off the line without protecting their family and their loved ones, and that's what we're trying to do today, right? The reason they're not already protected in a lot of cases is because the people who tried to help them in the past said, oh, okay, I'll call you later, and didn't engage them, right? We execute the process every time the best we can, no matter what we think about whatever's happening. You will make money, you will get to where you need to be, and most importantly, you're going to help people. And that energy is going to return itself to you over and over by making you better and better. The introduction is simple, it's straightforward, it's quick, but it has to be delivered. There's got to be some tonality and some change and some gratitude in the voice, getting a chance to tell you. A lot of folks don't even know that these state-approved final expense plans exist there in Florida. That's the energy we want to accomplish in Mod 1. So, well, by the time you're watching this video, we've probably read through Mod 1 a little bit. You have an idea. It's not complicated. Mod 1's as easy as it gets. But it will also end your chances of making money quicker than any other mod. So remember to execute, right? Practice and execute.
Mod 1, ladies and gentlemen. Mod.
This is a big one. Mod 2, the Y, rapport build, is probably what we talk about the most because, guys, this is where you get to know the person you're talking to. This is where your skill set as somebody that can have a conversation, to get someone talking about themselves, to make them feel, to get them to drop their defenses so they will work with you. It all happens in Mod 2, the rapport build. There's a lot of questions that we're asking throughout the entire process to get information for later on, but mainly to learn about them, right? They are not going to take action today unless they trust you, unless they believe they know you, but unless they feel certainty. And here's where we're going to get to know them. When we're rolling through Mod 2, if we're asking questions and getting one-word answers and going to the next one, guys, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you get to the end of a call and they don't have their information, they need a call back, they a million different excuses. So as you move through Mod 2, and we're going to spend a lot of time in this in training, there's documents, we've got state report facts, we've got report statements, we've got mini report statements, we've got all of the praising and storytelling and all those quick bits. It all goes into the report build. And if you're going to become a master of anything, become a master at building rapport, connecting to people, because you can do anything in your life if you can do that. Final expense, you're going to learn it. Right? It may seem overwhelming right now, but within a few weeks, you're going to have it down. Okay? It's pretty simple. Right? How old are you? Answer these 8 questions. This is how much it would be. Let me put an e-app in. It's pretty simple once you get it. Rapport building, though, is what gets you to the point of being able to even do that. Okay? So we've got to practice. We got to watch these videos. We got to talk and learn from all the resources that are there. When we go in and where do you live? Sure, we want to know where they live, but why? How long? Oh my goodness. Did they name a street after you? You've been there for so long. What do you love? I've never been there. Tell me more. What's something I should do if I go? Oh, you moved from there to Florida? Which one do you like better? Where have you lived longer? What's your favorite thing about this place? Man, that's so fascinating. You are such an amazing person. I can listen to you talk all day. More, more, more. The more we get them talking about themselves, the better chance you have of serving and helping them. You start talking about family, married, divorce, okay? To the tone of their.
It'll be back up.
What happened?
We don't even know what happened.
It'll be back up, right. I think he had a call coming in, and I had him check a different video, but I didn't realize it was the one too.
I promise you, you remember their kids' names and their grandkids' names
He messed up.
from Mod 2, and you bring that up again later in the process, and instead of saying your beneficiary, you say Angela, your daughter Angela. No, this person's listening, they're feeling, and you're gonna get them to open up, right? That's a big one because we love our family. I certainly love my family, and the decision to protect them is important to me. I certainly love talking about them to anyone who will listen, but these people we're talking to, they don't have a lot of folks listening to them very closely. They certainly don't have a lot of people praising them very often. And we have the opportunity to do that. Where did they work? Oh my goodness. Oh, what that must be so amazing. I worked on the railroads. I thought, well, what did you do? What stories did you see? You must have experienced so much. Tell me more. What happened? Oh, I worked at Walmart. What? You must have some great stories. I mean, how about Black Friday? Were you there on a Black Friday? It's infinite how far you can go with rapport building. But if all you're thinking about is when you got to get to lunch and how we need to make money and not what you're doing with the person that you're on the call with, you will not get to making the money. You won't get to a point where you're consistently a top performer, because this is what separates the average from the great when it comes to agents and final expense. How much can you follow up? How much can you extract out of the person until they feel like they're right there with you? And how many stories do you have ready? Because when they give to you, we're going to have to give back, right? That's an energetic exchange. When you get them to open up about something personal and they talk to you about it and you're fascinated and praising them and telling me more, oh my goodness, now you've got to be able to give back to them so that they say, wow, this person's a lot like me. And then we can move forward into the health questions like this, right? On the same side, not trying to pull somebody out to the other side. They came over here, they're ready to take action and make a decision with your assistance because they like you, not because you made them do anything. And that's the beauty of the rapport build, guys. I could go for 30 minutes on the rapport build, you'll hear plenty on it, but this is the essence. Get the rapport build down. I wonder if they can hear that dinging. I just got a ding on my computer.
All right.
It's a sense of humor.
I feel like you're all over the place, just
Mod 3, the health interview. Now, everything in the process builds on itself. From Mod 1, sounding different, informational. We want to give you this information that people don't even know exists there in your state. To building rapport and getting to know about the person, to flowing into Mod 3, where we're going to be, rapport is something that we're going to be working on throughout the entire call, looking for opportunities to praise and build trust or build doubt and all these various things. But we've got to be an agent, a performer that can wear many different hats. And the reason I say that is the process has a bunch of different parts that need to be executed in order to be successful. From the very beginning of sound, hey, I'm somebody you want to talk to and listen to in the Mod 2, where, hey, I'm going to be here. We got to be friends. I got to get to know you. Come on. Let's figure this out together. To Mod 3, where now you are a health interviewer. And this is serious business. And I got to know. And I hope that I built rapport enough for you to answer these questions truthfully, because they're going to determine what you quote, what product you go with, the whole rest of the call. So when you go into Mod 3, it needs to get very much health interview. I'm going to ask you some serious health questions, and I need you to respond with yes or no. And you've got to pronunciate. You've got to be in a good rhythm. We're not going too fast, but we're not going too slow. In the last 48 hours, right, have you, as a medical professional, ever diagnosed you with. And then we gotta know what the ailments are. And this is where we get into the learning of the information. There's gonna be a million prescriptions and things and how everything works together. You learn it as you go. The roadmap is in the yes or the no, right? Because as you'll learn, a yes here means they're not eligible. A yes down here means they are eligible for the second level product, but not the first. Or maybe a yes down here, they're eligible for the third, but not, or no's all across the board. We're gonna learn it, but if you're going in and you don't sound like you know what these conditions are or how to pronounce them, and you don't have authority and clarity in your voice, they're gonna think, maybe this person doesn't really know what they're doing, right? So we're going from being friends to being a health advocate. The information we get here is so valuable. We're gonna use it to build doubt because we want them to hope. We don't want them to, oh, you're so healthy, congratulations. Anybody would approve you. If anybody would approve it, then why would they talk? Well, there's no value in our interaction, right? So even if they say yes to everything, we're gonna find ways to build doubt. This is the kind of very clinical, very dry situation. So you've got to be able to move through it and keep their attention. The way you do that is by effectively executing the module before and by caring, having the tonality in your voice, getting the yeses and the nos and moving through the call. We had a lot of documents, we're gonna have a lot of practice, but this is the kind of meat and potatoes of the final expense roadmap. It's gonna tell you where we're going, okay? So make sure that you don't forget or you fail to learn the intricacies of how Mod 3 works in your day. And Miss Maureen is gonna spend some extra time here because it is very important. We want to get to not just say the things and sound like the things, we want to know the information so that we can best assist and help the person that we're talking to.
Thank you, y'all. All right. So 4, all that stuff should all sound like stuff that you've heard, but again, it is nice to have multiple points or perspectives or hear it over to review because you guys want to be very comfortable with, again, not just the words, but the reason and purpose behind each mod.
Don't they say like once a year something like takes like 7 times or something? What's that?
Something like that. But another one is people don't hear what you say, they hear what you keep saying. And that's one of his favorite mottos. But it is true.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to receive it for yourself and really understand. Because you can hear it one day and then be in a completely different place the other day, mindset wise, and hear it a whole different way. So, all right, this one is the longest of the reviews because you guys should see by now how important Mod 4 is. And this will help with where you're at right now too.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing quick bids. Might not be so quick on this one, guys. Mod 4. So Mod 4, I hope that as we're moving through the information, folks that are in the classroom or watching this from home, we're understanding the essence of these little quick bids. They're the glue, they're the why, right, behind each module, and each module builds on itself. Now, we've learned a lot about Mod 4 and how it opens the eyes and the mind of who we're speaking with, and it gets them in a place to truly reflect and take a look at their situation, what they've experienced, what they want to experience. Now, a lot of agents have difficulty with Mod 4 because Mod 4 is uncomfortable, okay? And I get that. Mod 4 is designed to be uncomfortable. The very nature of final expense is uncomfortable. Folks don't want to think about the end. It's why a lot of people that we talk to are so happy when they get a chance to hear from us, because what they've done throughout their life, at least if it's anything like my father, when he got his final expense policy, he was like, Andrew, I'm almost 60 years old and I didn't want to think about it. And I figured I was too old to get life insurance. I didn't even know that final expense was a thing. I didn't know there was designed state-approved programs to help folks that don't have a lot of money, that are on fixed or limited incomes, protect their family. Because of course I love my family. Of course I want to protect them. But in your head, it's cognitive dissonance. You think, I'm too old, I can't afford it, and nobody wants to think about themselves passing away and somebody in their family being burdened financially by it. It's a thought that we just try to put out of our mind. Unless we knew that these programs existed, unless a you was calling and presenting the process in a way that was informational, that was letting them know, hey, I want to get to know you. I've got the opportunity every day to present this information to folks that don't even know. They have no idea it even exists. And they're so happy, they're so amazed. But they're not going to listen. They're not going to picture. They're not going to be taken where they need to go to see the value and see how affordable it is and what can happen unless you are executing the process. So when we get into Mod 4, the very purpose of it is to utilize the information we've gathered through rapport building and the health interview to help the client realize that they've got to make a decision to protect their family. The programs are intended for final expense, but they can be used for anything at all. So we want to get to the field in Mod 4. We want to know, have you ever had to pay for a funeral before, right? We're rapport building just on an emotional level now. Have you ever had, what was it like? Tell me more. Who had to pay? Did they have coverage in place? Extract. Get them to see and to view. And it doesn't matter if they have paid for it or they haven't paid for it, if it went well or it didn't go well. We're going to ask follow-up questions to get them to picture all of it. And they're all right there for you, but unless you understand the why, and unless we understand that the growth in the moments where a decision happens is in the uncomfortable, the in-between moments, that's where action gets taken. So you've got to come with certainty, you've got to come with authority, and you've got to be confident in this piece. If you're uncomfortable in skipping stuff because you don't like how it makes you feel, you're never gonna make the client feel and see how important it is to make sure their family is protected. If they say yes to that question, how did it feel? This guy's praise. You should be trying to set records on every call to the amount of different ways and the amount of times you can praise them. But especially here, we're opening up about something uncomfortable. Unless we have built rapport effectively in Mod 2, unless we've spoken with certainty and decision and authority throughout the process, they're not going to open up to you and tell you what's inside of their heart. But that is what we do every day. That is how we help people. And if you're going into it thinking, I got to get a sale to make money, you're not going to be successful as you will if you go into it thinking, I can execute this process and help people. And when I do that, they will make the decision to act. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. Oh, you're such a strong person that gone through that. Can you imagine what it would be like? Oh, you've never had to pay for a funeral before. Well, imagine if you were in this situation and Andrea, your daughter, and Joe, your son, were arguing over this or that. I know it's not anything you'd ever want. It's a time where they should be celebrating your life. We got to ask responsibility questions in Mod 4. Tough questions. Questions that we need to have them think about and answer. Whose responsibility do you believe it is to have your final expenses covered? Do you think you should have that taken care of? Or is that something you feel like the kids should be taken care of? Now, if they say, in the off chance, in the seldom chance that they say, that's my kids. If they truly believe that, you're probably not getting into Mod 4. But if they say that to you, my kids, that's their responsibility to cover that. Well, fantastic. Well, then let's make this a gift of love to them for taking care of that. They don't have to use it for your final expense. They can use it for whatever they want. We can shift and we can be versatile. But in Mod 4, we want to get them imagining, thinking about past experience where they've had to pay for a funeral, where they've known how difficult it is. We want to have our stories ready about how expensive it can be and what can happen when it's not there. A feel-good story about what happens when it is there, right? All of these things are what builds the emotion in Mod 4, and we got to praise them. That praise and the stories that we give is emotional currency that we're giving back to them as a thank you for sharing that with me. Here's my story that relates to this. I want you to know it because I care about you, and you are so amazing. And guess what, customer? Andrea, your daughter, remember, we're trying to use the name of their loved ones. Remember that stuff from Mod 2. It has power here in Mod 4. Andrea is never going to have to worry about it because you and I are talking today. You have enough character to take action to make sure that Andrea never has to worry about these things. So it's a feel-good situation, but we got to make them think. If they did have to pay for a funeral, what did it feel like? Tell me more. Can you picture the weather that day? What was it like? Help me to understand. Phrase. Get them thinking about how they want their final arrangements going, right? Because as we're building rapport and as we're asking uncomfortable questions in Mod 4, we're also trying to formulate, as the experts and the authority in final expense, how much should we be looking at here as far as coverage options go? We don't want to quote them something they can't afford. We don't want to quote them something that isn't enough. We want to give them options that are going to cover exactly what they want. In order to do that, we've got to know exactly what they want. And it lends itself to the process. I'm thinking you want to go burial, funeral. Why? Well, you know, it's always so fascinating why people go either way. Is there something that happened in your youth that made you want to, something, I don't like the idea of worms eating my body. That's great. You would be surprised, sir, how much I hear that. No matter what their answer is, it's the right answer because it's their answer. We need to know what it is so that we can properly serve them. When you burial, funeral, who do you think will be paying? Certainty and decision time. I can certainly see why the decision to get this coverage is so important. Remember, speaking that certainty and decision as often as possible, literally using the words, helps them to feel more and more comfortable and more certain about the decision that they're going to make. Everything that we're doing is to serve them and serve them appropriately. Because if we do all of this and then we're quoting them something that doesn't make sense, then it's gonna all be for naught. Okay? Now, there's power in those questions, in those fact-finding, in that digging, in that tell me more, those extractions. If you want to be great at the job, utilize the information that's all around you guys. You're going to have people who are trying to help you. You're going to hopefully be talented enough to see the value in the presentation, but you're going to have the documents, the training folder, the Pure Cloud links. There's word tracks galore. Learn them. They connect the dots between everything we do. The tell me more, the so tell me, wouldn't you agree? Doesn't that make sense? These all help you to help your customer. Let's see what I'm missing here. Some of the questions. Why is this type of coverage important to you? What are you most focused on here with getting this in place? Are you most focused on just getting that cremation covered? Or do you want to leave a little bit extra? Questions that can help you quote them properly. You may know because of your excellent fact find in Mod 2 that somebody in a very limited income, very limited means, they want to get cremated. We're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 max. We're not going to quote that person $35,000, right? But we can't find everything. So we may have a good report build, and the lady may say, hey, I didn't tell you about this earlier, but I do have an inheritance, and I'd really like to get the maximum amount possible. That way my funeral can be covered, and I can leave a little bit extra. Well, hey, if we didn't ask that question, maybe we would have never quoted the amount, the higher amount that should be. So it goes on, it goes both ways. Oh man, this module is so good. If you ask the questions correctly, if you get the client to imagine and to think about the situation, if you stop long enough to listen to what they say, if you're using your tonality to come up and to come down, I tell you what, I'm so happy you never had to go through that before, but could you imagine what it would be like if Andrea, on that day, hopefully a long time from now, has to worry about all these other things? Does she have $15,000 to cover that? Would it be an easy thing for her? Oh no, it wouldn't. You know what? It doesn't even matter. The fact that we're talking today, the decision that you're making, the character that you're showing, the love that you have for your family, she's never going to be in that situation. And I am so grateful to get to assist you. I don't always get to talk to people like you, and it really makes my day. We're praising, we're moving forward, we're speaking certainty and decision, we're telling our stories, right? My story in that situation about my father was this. When my dad got final expense insurance, a couple weeks later he says to me, he says, Andrew, I never wanted to think about it. I didn't know it existed. And I knew that, I hoped that you'd be in a good enough situation to have the money and not have to worry about it, but I didn't want to think about it, right? Well, then I got the final expense insurance and I realized $10,000, $40, I can do that. And, I got it done and I thought to myself, all right, I got it done. That's good. I'm going to make sure I pay my premium. But what he didn't know, he said, it was the days after, Andrew. He goes, it was moving through the days after I had it in place, I just felt a little bit lighter. I knew that I did something now for you. And it made me move through my day like I lost a few pounds, was his exact words. And that made me laugh because that's a story. That's how he felt. And that's what the process is. It's about feeling. It's about imagining. It's about going through every possible aspect of what could happen to make sure that our loved ones are put in a position to where it doesn't happen adversely. And when we do that, man, they love you. They remember you forever. They refer other people to you. If something happens and there's insufficient funds down the line and you call them up, hey, it's I remember, I'm so sorry. They feel connected to you and you feel connected to them. Not to mention now, you make money. Your day goes by fast. You add value to yourself by adding value to other people. It's the essence of Mod 4, guys, and it builds. When all of the first 6 mods are done correctly, Mod 7, the data pull, the stuff that people, I gotta pull a checking account, the social security, that stuff is there. It's easy. Mod 7 is the easiest mod in the biz. What's your social? Address, beneficiary name, checking account, bank name. Instant, easy, because we've done the work. We've done the work here. They want to protect their family, and they're grateful that you helped them do it. Watch this video again. Watch this video again. If you get to the end and they don't have their checking account, they need to call you back. They're not really sure. They need to talk it over with their wife. Watch it again. You didn't make them feel. They don't believe. If you do Mod 2 and Mod 4 correctly, you won't be in that situation.
The end. Did you guys hear anything in any of the recaps or reviews that you are not familiar with or did not hear previously or that you took away from this?
I just like quoted some of the things he said as quotes for me to go off of.
You guys will always have access. Matter of fact, I will send you guys the links. Do y'all want those?
Yes.
There's so much training ourselves to use them for them to pop up at the proper time in the conversation.
Initially, just reading through the script will give you everything that you need and understanding what the purpose of each mod is. So, quick review. What is the purpose of mod 1? Somebody, anybody, everybody.
That's to
Quick,
just,
quick introduction, and more importantly, that's where we're asking them, do you have a physical bank account? Do you have a physical bank, because you gotta make sure that you're not about to waste your time.
Like general type, quick information. And, a couple of like the code questions and.
So you're setting the tone for the call and you're preparing them for what is to come. You're telling them about yourself and who you are and why they're talking to you and what it is you're going to be giving them information about, which is the state-approved final expense products. So again, setting the tone for the call by having authority and introducing them to the product, the process, and yourself. Mod 2, pretty straightforward. If you do not know the purpose of Mod 2, then just go home now and don't come back to my route. What is the purpose of Mod? Because if you don't know Mod 2 at this point, there's no reason to stay on the call. And I hope you all know that. Yes. Everything is rapport. So Mod 2
is, it's fact finding. It's where you're talking, getting to know
Building
them,
that trust.
letting them know you. You know what I mean? You're listening for all those little points that you can pull up later. You know what I mean? That's what you're doing. And we spend quite a bit of time doing that.
Yes, we're spending at least what?
10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes in Mod 2, making a paren, yes, getting those points that you know that you're gonna need later on so that you can drive all the rest of the process home. Yes. Mod 3, what is the purpose of Mod 3?
That's the health background, to get their health information, make sure that we can actually go ahead and get through this, because this is the serious knockout questions right here.
Not knockout, because knockout is not
Well,
one,
the
but
knock-
these are health
well, there-
questions.
Well, yeah, but I mean, technically, depending on how you answer it, you gonna get knocked out.
There's no knockout, if they make it to
One,
mod, yeah, everything else in mod 3 is just deciding or determining what you're gonna quote them, like what type of coverage they qualify for. So if they're in mod, if you make it through mod 1, then we can find them something. It's just how much coverage, or not what, how much, but the type of coverage that they qualify for, that they're eligible for, is what's determined in mod 3. The only thing that can really knock them out in mod 3 is if they have a medication, but by the time you get to mod 3, it's very rare that a prescription would deny them coverage. So mod 3 is the health questions. We're getting to know them, their health, ask questions, take your time there. Do not be afraid to ask follow-up questions. If they give you a yes answer, we want to make sure that we are clear on those yes answers, and that they're clear and that we know what the question is, number one, so that we can be clear on the yes answers if they give us a yes. The Guide to Insure YouTube channel. Did you go pull up day 2?
No,
Before you leave, just remind me.
okay, I'm like, nobody ever told me about that.
Okay, so, mod 3, health question. Professional, go through them, be thorough, don't let them, no, and you just move past. You make sure you ask the question in its entirety so that you and them are aware of what's being asked, so they know how to answer the question. You don't want to skim past anything because they're rushing you, and then in underwriting them, they start revealing all of this stuff that they didn't tell you. And then mod 4,
Pulling up their emotions, pulling on their emotional heartstrings.
good job. The mod 4 is the emotional fact find. So we want them to what? Feel. Everything about mod 4 is feelings. When you're giving your story, think feelings, because in order to evoke emotions, we have to get some feelings going. So if your stories, as you are writing them, if your stories are making you feel and you're not using feeling words and talking about the emotion, yes, you want to give some color and paint a picture, but the best way to paint a picture and to get someone to really feel what you are saying and to really put themselves in the situation that you were in or that you're trying to get them to understand, it's all those feeling words. So make sure that as you go in and revamp, think of some really good words to paint the picture, make them feel. So that is the biggest takeaway from adding to your stories. Yes, you guys have the general gist of what you want to write about. So now go in and drop those nuggets to bring those stories to life. Okay?
You said you do have a page with that on it?
The
The words.
Yes.
basically?
The
What
word
page
track.
was it?
Feeling words, no. Word tracks,
The word
there is a
tracks.
word track.
Yeah,
No.
there is.
I meant for feeling words, I'm sorry.
Right. So no, there isn't a page with feeling words. Google them, just make them. Just go in. Just heavy stuff. Just go heavy. Make 'em
Deep, dark place we were in.
No, but well, yeah, you want.
In the
yeah. Just sounded so bad when you said it. Like that. The deep dark place that you're
Well,
proud
that's
of.
emotional.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna make them feel, but we are going to. We're not gonna leave them out on that cliff to where they just want to run and jump. We're going to build them up and thank them and praise them for having the
Did you have me when I was?
I'm gonna send you an email to look at, please, and thank you. I don't know if he was waiting because I didn't hear the door close. So, like Andrew's the best person that you could ever want to work for. Okay. Yes. Make them feel. So you're making them feel, you're bringing up these things, you're doing all of this to get them to be emotional, but then the fact that you are able to provide them with a solution to not have their family in that situation is really the payoff for you doing all that. So you're not doing it all for naught, you're doing it all to make them think yes, to make them feel yes, but even better, I have something for you. Hold on, wait, there's more. Let's fix this. And you have the opportunity right now to do something right now to take care of all of this so that your kids can enjoy and celebrate. And everyone's gonna pass. Why not allow your passing to be something that is not a burden on the people that you love the most? So we're talking today, we're taking care of it today. I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to help you. You are so wonderful for doing this. I wish more people were like you. You being proactive is huge. Your character is big. You are a beautiful soul. You are such a wonderful mother. Oh, I love how you love your wife and you are taking care of her, whether you're here or gone. That is true love. I know she's going to appreciate that. She probably doesn't want to hear about it now, but she's going to enjoy being able to just simply not have to worry about these things when the time comes. All of those things are things that you are going to want to do and think about and address when you are providing these stories. You want to tie it back into good job for you for talking to me today so we could take care of this and not put your family in that situation. Boom. Why would I not want to get a policy? Why would I not want to get something done to? So the rapport build and building up to be able to get them to do all of this with you in Mount 4, you have to build rapport because nobody's going to do all of that with you if they feel like, I don't even want to talk. Do not be afraid to build rapport in Mount 2. The whole process builds on each other. Leaving out of Mount 4, now you have them feeling like, oh, I need this, oh, I need to do something. But guess what we have for you? A product, ding, 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 and the product is, and then you go into prosperity. It's wonderful, it's awesome. This is what they have. This is why it's for you. This is why I love that I can offer this to you. And then we roll into the rest of the script. So we'll continue tomorrow. What?
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about myself. Like, now I feel like I was all critical in my 2 overthinking, and now I'm over here thinking my 2's about to be a breeze, and now I'm freaking out about this.
But I'm glad that you have that because it builds. It builds. So as you learn more, now you'll be hopefully feel excited about, okay, well, no, I'm going to make them cry. But then listen to all this wonderful stuff that Prosperity does for people so that you can feel excited that you'll be able to offer them a solution. So we're taking you through the process, really is what's happening right now.
Yeah, you are.
So enjoy it, soak it in, keep those feelings, like being present. Again, yes, we're learning about this. This is something you need to know, but be present in the moment. After we get out of training and you guys are on these calls, think about what you're doing. Like you're talking to someone about covering the people that they love so that they have something in place. Like it's real stuff. So don't just get caught up in going through the motions. In training, yes, you're learning, but when you get out there, after your call, breathe, take a second and, okay, let me help somebody else. Like really be engaged in the person that you're talking to because you could be the difference of them being able to help their family versus not.
And you have those, so to speak, bullet points. You know what you're supposed to be doing in my 1, my 2, my 3, my 4, all the way to my 9. You have one key word. You know what I mean? You're not going to get lost, because you know what you're supposed to be doing, what part you haven't covered yet. After a while, it'll just be like breathing.
Yep. And more yet. Spend some time. If you guys want to keep jotting down, you can. You guys are done. See you guys tomorrow. Yes. Okay, get out of here. Go warm up. Go live your best lives. At least till tomorrow at 10 a.m.
She let me come in here.
No, this is even better than your best life.
She's like,
Tomorrow you laundry.
Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you'll live your best life just in a small space. So, yes, now go out, be free.
I'm free.
Laundry. I have to be free this weekend. I have to do laundry now. The reason I have to be free is I'm going to hit that book way more time with those things. So, I got paper homework to do.
Reel it in, put it in those words and put your All right. Guide to Ensure on YouTube. Day 2. It's a part 1 and a part 2. I think part 2 is really what we started in on the script, but it's the whole thing. It's everything.
All right, we'll watch that one tonight.
All right.
For those.
Look at you.
I think I figured out that symbol.
Bye, ladies. Sorry I didn't give you guys a good goodbye. See y'all on tomorrow. Oh, y'all gave me a good goodbye. Okay.
That's how that's going today.
I looked down and they're both like, bye. Ah, good stuff.
Have a good night, Warren.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for putting up with